Powered by Riverside FM.
In 1862, the city of Philadelphia was founded in the province of Pennsylvania, between the Delaware and Schuylkill rivers. It quickly grew into an important colonial city, and, during the American Revolution, was the site of the First and Second Continental Congresses. During the War for Independence, the city was chosen to be the temporary capital of the United States, with its state house used by Congress during this time. This landmark would go on to be known as Independence Hall, a lasting monument to American independence. For their sequel to 2011's Homefront, German publisher Crytek would decide to use Philadelphia as the backdrop for their campaign. A reboot of sorts of that original game, the world of Homefront sees a military of occupation of the United States by a unified Korea. If the people of Philly could fight back against the Georgian-era Brits, then perhaps they could do it again against a more technologically advanced foe. To make sure that this revolution would go off without a hitch, Crytek looked to the talent of a once celebrated developer who, through a string of bad luck, needed a shot of redemption. Having proven their quality through multiplayer modes for Crytek's previous games, this would be their opportunity to once again remind the world why they were once masters of the console FPS. The mistakes of Hayes were going to be a thing of the past, and this was the title that would perfect their future. Question was, did their revolutionary work go noticed? On this episode of Bullet Time, we close out our mini-series on the games of Free Radical Design Limited, with Dambuster Studios' 2016 game, Homefront: The Revolution.
Bloody playing this game, James, it felt like a battle. Not for America, but for whether or not I liked this game.
For not for your attention span either, I guess. You did stick it out.
I stuck it out. I finished it. I'm surprised I did. I came close to quitting, but it's a game where I wanted to like it, and I would finish every session slightly frustrated, and then, like, an hour later, a day later, I'd think, now, come on, there's got to be something here that you like. And I'd open it again, and I'd be wanting to like it, and just as every play session went on, I liked it less and less and less. The story was better than the meandering, but neither was great. Not close to great. I don't even know.
I mean, it's very weird because I played this. Maybe this was the first game that I played for the Free Radical series, weirdly enough, when we had started doing research.
I think it was for me as well. My earliest recordings are in November, so it could have been second or third maybe. And I was like, oh, I'll finish this by the time that I need to finish it. And then yesterday, I think we were just talking. A couple of weeks ago, and I was like, "Oh, James, just give me a deadline, so I'll finish the fucking game."
Can you just give me a time that I can just get this out of my life?
Yeah, because if I'm not forced to finish this, if I'm not told, "Hey, here's the finish line, get it done by then," it's never going to be touched. It's just not going to get done.
Whereas that competes with my thing of, I don't want to put anyone out. I'd rather people do stuff at their own pace, and you're like, no. I need a deadline for this. I need to exercise this from my computer.
Yeah, with guests, no, you got to be polite. With me, you got to be like, all right, Snake, here's your deadline, because then I work good on deadlines.
That's true.
It's when I have unlimited time that there's a problem.
No, that's when you get into the weeds of, is this game good? Is it bad?
I hope this podcast will illuminate that for myself, but so far I'll say I think this is better than Haze, but I also kind of hate it just as much in its own way.
In its
own special way.
Yeah, I have complicated thoughts about it. I guess first things first. Hi folks, welcome to Bullet Time, the video game podcast that analyzes the shooters that miss their marks. We're continuing. Well, no, we're not. We're finishing. This is it. We've hit the end, folks, of the Free Radical mini-series, Future Perfect. This is, well...
This is an inauspicious end.
Yeah,
both to
this is...
the Homefront series, to this sub-series.
Yeah, this is the oddest ending that we've done to a mini-series so far. And that's probably because of the fact that the first one that we did was Raven Software, and they're still a developer making games. It's just that they make Call of Duty campaigns, and they're working on Warzone. Well, Warzone 2.0 is what they do now, but like the last game that we wrapped up on was Singularity, which felt like a nice capstone of, oh, they're a very, a solid workman-like developer. They, made quality FPS games, didn't quite punch above, nothing to the extent of like a Half-Life 2, or like a Halo Combat Evolved, or even a Call of Duty Modern Warfare. But there's Raven made a lot of games which people, look back on fondly and say, oh, I enjoyed that. And that went all the way up to their last original release, which was Singularity. Free Radical Design Limited is, like, I don't know whether it's also because of the thing of Raven Software, American company, American underdog story versus British cynicism of just a quality developer being ground down into a paste to the extent of the game that we are covering isn't technically a Free Radical Design Limited game. They were not called that when this game was released. And I guess technically, well, this is in a weird limbo period as well, but I guess we'll get into that. But
it's years removed, funnily enough, for a studio that specialized in time travel games. This is years removed. And locationally and gameplay-wise, far removed from anything they made before.
Oh, yeah. So, God, well, I guess, so just to put people out of the misery, the game that we're talking about today is Homefront: The Revolution, made by Dambuster Studios and published by... published by D Silver. It was meant to be published by Crytek.
Because they were Crytek UK for a time when they did the Crisis multiplayers, which we didn't cover. We jumped over those. We had a friend tell us that they were really into Crisis 2 multiplayer.
Yep.
But I think it passed both of us by, because I didn't play those games.
I think the thing with this podcast series has been as well, and I'm sure people have figured this out pretty quickly, I say we, I think this is more me, and I guess
you're focused on the big ticket releases.
I was going to say more into campaigns and single player modes rather than multiplayer.
Yeah, there is some stuff I want to do with multiplayer, but it's ambitious. It's a bit of,
multiplayer we will cover at some point, because I think we want to talk about like the weird multiplayer modes that a lot of 360 era games had. I wanted to have either a single thing or a little sub-series maybe on talking about games that had bizarre multiplayer modes or ideas that didn't catch on. Like where a game would put a unique spin or a new objective on things, like the old Battlefield 2040 game where it was about taking out a ship, and that mode was very popular and never quite happened again. Or Metal Gear Solid 4, which had Snake v Guards, which was a cool thing where one player was the hero. And basically those kind of modes where it's like, cool idea, didn't quite catch on or was very specific. Yeah, and I've always had a bit of a fascination with like that kind of era where developers, it's mostly publishers were trying to figure out how can we increase the longevity of these games, and a lot of them went the avenue of kind of like additional content or even locking people out of like resales. Like Batman Arkham City is the one I always think of, where there's 25% of that game that you cannot play unless you buy a brand new copy of it, which is bizarre to consider like in today's like era. Did that kind of come out of because there was a period where game manufacturers were very, very scared of secondhand sales, so they put codes in or... Yep. Yeah, they locked features like, oh, you buy new or, go screw yourself. I hated that. And part of that was also, if we want people to keep playing these games and not sell them on, they need to have multiplayer modes. I think a part of that was also looking at the success of stuff like Halo and going, well, you played the campaign, but then you play it for months afterwards in the multiplayer. Or some people just buy it, like Call of Duty, some people just buy it for the multiplayer, and they were like, okay, BioShock 2 could be our Call of Duty Modern Warfare, and it's like, really?
And apparently its multiplayer is surprisingly good.
It is made by Digital Extremes, who would then go on to just make nothing but Warframe for the rest of eternity. But they were a very solidly reliable multiplayer dev house. I mean, they started by they worked with Epic on like the first versions of Unreal and Unreal Tournament, and then it just became relied upon for, hey, help us out with our game. And
I think
one of the things they did was
the funniest one of these is fucking Spec Ops: The Line has a online multiplayer mode.
That and The Last of Us, I also think is kind of bizarre that has a multiplayer mode as well. I mean, Spec Ops is obviously the funnier one because it's an anti-war game, and a multiplayer is like, obvious. I mean, most multiplayer games haven't really got stories of anything to them, but I guess if there was like, what would be the political opposites of what Spec Ops: The Line was saying, it would be a multiplayer mode.
Yeah. It'd be good if it tried to do some PTSD mechanic as the round goes on. As the round goes on, the winning team starts suffering from delusions to make the game harder to play.
God, yeah, you could have it like there is like permanent damage as well. So like when you get the kill streak and you unlock white phosphorus, just the other team is just completely like it's the bit from Modern Warfare where you're caught in the nuclear blast and you're like stumbling around dying from radiation poisoning, but for the rest of the rounds.
They should have had us there. They should have had us at Jaeger Studios.
They should have had me in the room. Oh God, yeah.
No, make the multiplayer more grisly. Make it worse.
The weirdest thing is that Jaeger became one of the developers that worked on Dead Island 2, which still is not out.
And is now being done by former fucking Free Radical alumni.
No, even worse than that. It's being done by... Yeah, you're right. It's being done by Dambuster now. It was given to fucking Sumo for a little bit as well, because they were like, oh, you can get a game over the line. Because they had... Sumo were the ones that got Crackdown 3 to come out. Like, after a million years of development on that, they were like, yeah, these guys are reliable. The Snake Pass and Sonic Racing guys.
They'll give it to them. God, Sumo Digital. I always mistake them. I don't know why I always mistake them for the Mr. Mosquito guys. Maybe it was them.
Big Ben?
I don't remember. It's a long history. Sumo Digital sounds very familiar, but I'm bad at remembering who does what.
No.
That's why you're here. You remember stuff. You know
That's
stuff.
right. Yeah, I'm the nostalgia critic. I remember it, so you don't have to.
Genuinely, in this case, because I can't.
And I'm also firing my gun wildly into the air because they introduced a Homefront credit card in this game. Where do we...
Homefront credit card.
Homefront credit card?
I guess before we get to the actual game, this game does have multiplayer, but it's online co-op, and we neglected to play it.
A couple of the reviews did say that the co-op does make the game slightly more enjoyable, but in the way that co-op makes every game slightly more enjoyable.
I mean, yeah, and it's missions, isn't it? It's kind of preset.
Oh, yeah, it's God, what was it called? Spec Ops mode in Modern Warfare 2?
Oh, right, yeah.
Had like specialized missions where it was like built around co-op. Like my favorite one of those was like where somebody was in the AC-30 and another person was on the ground, and you were kind of like trying to coordinate together. And yeah, like Homefront: The Revolution kind of has stuff like that, but the main bulk of the game is, I guess the easiest way to describe it is it's a Far Cry game.
Yeah, that is jumping right into it. This is a Ubisoft-styled checklist game that is both more interesting and somehow worse. I don't know how to put it, because I'm at a disadvantage to begin with because I have a complete distaste for Ubisoft.
Let's go into our, because we were talking about initial thoughts anyway. So let's circle back to that and let's get into your thoughts, which very much relates to you're not a Ubisoft checklister.
So I played a lot of them when I was in on Assassin's Creed like day one, and I followed it. I think I followed it right up to Syndicate. Though I gave Unity a miss. And I played Far Cry 3, didn't play 4, played 5, and I played Watch Dogs, and they have, it's called the formula. I think it's a toy box nowadays, and Oh, I played Valhalla as well. I've got my credentials, and
Yeah,
there are
you've put your time in.
Yeah.
So.
And my kind of take on it is the most boring, lifeless, soulless route that free roamers could have took, and it's also popular because it's a very good way of kind of creating very habit-forming gameplay and selling it year on year, and I hate their approach to storytelling. Assassin's Creed was originally meant to be a trilogy. The director left, and then it wasn't a trilogy. Ubisoft.
Well, he didn't leave. He got fired.
Left with malice, I suppose.
Yeah, left in a very awkward thing. Because I think Dennis told us this story when we were last time we saw him, which was Patrice Désolé came into work and they handed him his like basically they had emptied his desk, handed it to him in a box and said, "Get out."
Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it just never ended, and I was going through a very cynical period when I realized it, and I'm not so grumpy nowadays. Shocker, I'm on this rant, but I don't know. I hate that method of storytelling. I'm someone who likes a conclusion, likes a definitive endpoint, likes the themes to kind of all come together and land. And I say that as a Yakuza fan as well, I know, but those stories are one and done, even in a series.
Sure.
But stretching these kind of things out into infinity, and I don't know, it's very frustrating. It feels so artificial, a method of storytelling. And it particularly annoys me in Watch Dogs, where it's constant stories of... Especially because they so often do the framing of revolution. But you do a framing of revolution, but funnily enough for this, where it will just never end. Because the moment there's a conclusion, you have to cancel a series. You have to be done.
And it always feels like when they do that as well, it's that they always go, well, shit, we can't have an element of finality. And it always seems like they go to the same thing of... Well, what if the revolutionary leader is a bad guy as well? And that's game developer brain going, one, what if we have a twist because people love twists, and two, how do we keep the story going? But then when you read into it like it's just a story, you go, oh, that kind of politically that's pretty fucked.
Yeah.
Essentially you're just saying is don't fight for change, even if you try and make stuff better. It will just make...
And so the gameplay doesn't. And I've realized, sorry, I went off on one and it became more about the thing. But basically it's just, you play GTA and you play a lot of freeroamers, and I played Boiling Point growing up. And to me, the joy of a sandbox is kind of spontaneity and variety of approach and objectives and, it feeling like a world. And Ubisoft games and that kind of, I'm going to call checklist freeroamers, they feel so artificial. It just feels like not even a sandbox. It feels like a hub world that just has some meaningless dots scattered around, and you do a thing, it pushes a bar up 1%, and I just can't get beyond that artificiality, even though other games just aren't better. Framing does kind of a lot for me, and and I think Ubisoft has just gotten to the point of putting the artificiality front and center, because that also just kind of activates the dopamine, like, oh cool, I'm checking off a list, I'm making progress, even though it's minuscule and pointless and annoying. And it gets worse in games like Far Cry and Assassin's Creed. Every game you're kicked back to 0.0 and it's like, oh shit, I have 2 out of 4 weapons, I gotta do this boring busy work to feel like a functional character again for the fucking 20th time. And I played a bunch of them as a teenager, and I don't have the stomach for it anymore. I don't have I'm actually a rather impatient person, so
sure.
The more games go on, I like games that just kind of get to the point, get me to the fun. I feel kind of fully featured. I have a fully featured moveset, and the game is going to be about challenging my mastery of that kit. And I think Homefront is better because Homefront is more antagonistic towards the player in a good way, in that it makes you feel like you are in a dangerous zone. You have to be a little bit sneakier, a little bit more clever than a Far Cry game, where it's just kind of, it's very hands-off, it's very frictionless an experience, which is quite dull. This one actually has a little element of friction. And the series is over, and it's ended. So I also kind of, whether or not that was
feel like
purpose,
there's an extra sense of finality to it in regards to.
I respect it because of elements outside of its control, as unfair as that is.
I guess to circle back then, because I think my thoughts on it, and I think it's interesting because they have shifted a little bit after playing it and also from doing research elsewhere, but like, you kind of said that, you know, the Ubisoft, it was a formula, then became a toy box, and then...
Yeah, they create... Every game, they create a new element, and then they kind of... They bury the lead by, oh, now we've made this one feature, we can bring it back in the future sometimes.
Yeah,
so it's
they sometimes add another flavor to the menu, but I would say, I wouldn't call it a formula at this point because it is so figured out. It's a template.
Okay.
Like, it is something that can be photocopied across games, and then you just kind of change the aesthetic qualities of it. So, an Assassin's Creed game is third person, little bit of stealth stuff, and then you have the continuing story of like Altair's bloodline and Abstergo and stuff like that. Watch Dogs, what's the twist? You have a mobile phone, it's set in a contemporary setting, and it's a bit more about conspiracy. Far Cry, what's the difference? It's first person, tiny bit of like weapon stuff, but they all follow exactly the same beats of you can stick to the main story missions, or you can do like base liberation, and by doing that you color in the map a little bit, and
you
usually
color in the map and get unlocks, and
basically it's like you open a map in a Ubisoft game, and the thing that it used to be was people were put off like in Assassin's Creed 2 and Brotherhood because you open the map and there was a million icons, and you go, oh well, this is just overwhelming. And then they figured out, okay, what if we don't show all the icons at once? What if you have to liberate a base or find a tower, and then we populate it with icons? And as you said, it's the thing of you walk forward and you get an unlock, and then you turn left and you do an activity, and kind of that and that. And it's weird because it goes back to what we were saying earlier on about a lot of kind of early AAA experiments in how do we expand the length of gameplay. And some people experimented with, you know, DLC or with multiplayer modes and stuff like that. But I think probably there was a time, especially between the release of Far Cry 3 and I would say maybe about 5 years ago, maybe actually may even be more recent, where the Ubisoft formula was the way to go in regards to, well, we could take what is essentially 5 hours of gameplay and extend it to 15 or 20.
Yes, yeah.
And the way that we do that is by essentially getting a little bit of butter and putting it along the world's largest piece of toast. And I guess to frame it around Homefront the Revolution, because that would kind of nicely tie it into the game that we're talking about anyways, but also kind of give examples of what we mean. So the game is about essentially, well, it's set in Philadelphia, and the game is the meat of the game. The reason that you bought it is that you liberate parts of Philadelphia borough by borough, essentially.
Yeah,
kind of
it's
like small...
urban Far Cry. It's an urban jungle.
Yeah, which is, funnily enough, that was like the first thing when I started playing. It was like, oh, this is genuine. This is interesting in regards to, you know, Ubisoft have Watch Dogs, but they don't really do the park war element of it that they have in Assassin's Creed. Maybe a little bit in 2 and Legion, but I don't know so much about 1 just because I haven't played it.
1 had the tower stuff. 2 was when people were getting really sick of the towers and they were changing it up. So in 2, you didn't have liberations. You had areas that were hard set as this is gang territory or police territory. You go here, you get shot. I liked 2's world the most. Yeah. Like, London had its charms, but I liked 2's world the most because it felt more defined. It felt like this is a world, and basically what I dislike about a lot of Ubisoft worlds is your ability to influence it feels very artificial. Like, you're told, oh, cool, you've liberated this base, you've done this, but you don't feel like you've actually had an effect on the world beyond it just insisting upon that. Into the fact that you couldn't actually made me like it more because it felt like the world actually had a character and I was just kind of existent within it. This game actually does it fairly well, I'd say, because... Yeah, again, that was a thing as well of, like, my feelings of it have fluctuated in regards to... So you do you liberate bases and you, like, find a, you know, like an item pack, or you find... Like in Assassin's Creed, it was feathers, but I guess in this is radios, that you turn radios on and it pumps in, you know, inspirational chants and stuff.
that does, one, at least feed into the plot, but it also mechanically does nicely pay off in regards to the zones do change when you reach a certain level of liberation.
Yeah, it's very funny though. We're jumping ahead a bit, but
sure.
Throughout the game, you kind of loop between like green zones and red zones. Or I can't remember what the names are, but basically in
green, yellow, and red.
Yellow and red. In yellow zones, it's like the KPA is very present, but there's also citizenry present. So you're encouraged to be like, it's more social stealth. It's like walk around, avoid the KPA, be very careful and don't stand out or whatever. And you can hide in dustbins to fucking for 5 seconds and they'll forget about
the
you.
grudge.
And those have the most immediate visual effect is that you go around like blowing up fuse boxes, turning on radios, and like, assassinate the KPA officer, save this civilian. And the more you do that, you see more people kind of like they're trashing cars and they're openly rebelling. But the KPA still ignore them and go after you. So it's very funny that I've had at multiple points like, there's just a citizen with a baseball bat just smashing the shit out of a car. And then a KPA officer sees me just walking around. It's like, I'm going after that guy.
I can only assume that because you never see what your guy looks like. So I can only assume they're dressed.
But it's still funny that they just ignore the baseball bats guy.
I assume that your guy looks like, like in Brazil where they have Mardi Gras. Like, you're just dressed up like a flamenco dancer at all times. And they're just like, that's the guy.
You're wearing a big fucking American flag cape and they're like, oh no.
Yeah, you look like Homelander from The Boys, but you're also kitted out in as many weapons as possible. Which we'll get into weapons.
We've jumped ahead to Right to Liberation. Let's.
Well, I guess we're talking about sort of the loops and stuff as well.
I guess that is the key point. Yeah, that's what people are going to be thinking about, which is it's more condensed than Far Cry, and that is to its benefit. But I kind of hate the activities in this game.
And here's the thing that I will say to kind of bring it back around, which is the thing that I said about like taking a bit of butter and spreading it across a lot of toast. This game does have a lot of good ideas in it, but it's so diluted by its adherence to doing the Ubisoft formula.
That's actually where I will disagree with you.
Interesting. Okay,
So I think this is more focused than Ubisoft, and that's to its benefit. Where I think it's worse is in execution, where for all of my gripes with Ubisoft, and this is a very loaded, backhanded compliment.
Sure.
They have mastered a smooth experience. And that's not smooth interesting. It's like they know the visual language, they know how to tell the player exactly what to do, which granted, that's also because they load their games down with text and idiot proofing. But it's also the visual language is very clear. Like, you come across a tower, even though it's a few years out of date. You come across anything in a Ubisoft game and it communicates itself. Which, granted, having played Far Cry 6 recently, very literally, because it will fucking pop up a 3-page tutorial. This doesn't have that, and that's... I'm of very two minds about this, because it's both better and worse, because throughout the game, and this feels very good for a revolutionary game, is... it uses like signs and signposting and world details. Like you'll see doors with this painted on it. And I don't believe the game ever explains what those signs mean. Maybe it was in mail or like in a menu somewhere. As you do those puzzles, you kind of start realizing more and more. It's like, this is a hidden language the KPA doesn't understand. That's kind of clever.
Yes.
But also, those puzzles are so fucking annoyingly laid out, and the world is so bland. Like, you were watching me stream it to you once. Do you remember we were walking around a house for like 5 minutes before I looked up and realized...
had to shoot a roof.
Yeah,
like...
some of the ceiling tiles had like a sign on them, and I just thought, do I shoot the ceiling tile? And I shot it, the thing fell down, I was like, oh, fuck off. Whoever looks up? But it also works in a sense of the revolution. It's like, hey, it took me minutes to fucking find that, and I'm in the fucking revolution.
That is true, yeah. I mean, I'll give it this, like, it does very much kind of punch above its weight in regards to... And we'll dig into all this kind of stuff anyways, but, like, it very much punches above
urban puzzles.
Yeah, but, like, the world design of the game is genuinely... the world building, I guess, is... interesting in regards to the developers. Well, I suppose they had a prequel to work from, but from doing reading and from what I understand, the Revolution is like a massive step up, both kind of quality-wise and kind of like how they force out the world and stuff. So, like, yeah, the fact that the Revolution have their own sort of ludic language. Like they use like blue is the color that they use at the Revolution, and like they will dot places in the world which are in blue to let you know, hey, this may lead to something that will help you out. Is neat. And obviously you've seen stuff like that in Uncharted and in Mirror's Edge, but the fact that they do manage to kind of ground it in a relatively natural setting, and it does at least tie into the plot in a way that, say,
it feels
Uncharted
a bit more like an
doesn't.
actual diegetic kind of hidden language thing, like a sign for characters of the world rather than for the player's benefit, even though it is also that.
Sure. It's something that does pay off in an interestingly gamey way. It's funny, though,
it's
that
something where like I feel like I could have liked it if I'd just come in at a slightly different point, or like, I don't know. I don't know what it could have done. It could just be a me problem, but like a Far Cry puzzle isn't really a puzzle. It's just a fucking tidbit to make you think you've done something. This game, I think, makes you work for it, but I also didn't enjoy the work, so that I feel a bit of a hypocrite. But there are some puzzles, and when I mean urban puzzles, it's like, while avoiding the KPA, which we've talked about yellow zones, in the red zones, it's open, it's shoot on sight, and there's a fucking blimp at all times that will flag up infinite reinforcements on your position, which makes some puzzles so irritating, as you have to sit and wait for like minutes for this thing to fuck off so you can do a puzzle. But I would be like, you come across like 3 warehouses, and you have to work out this arcane series of walkways and passages to get beyond a door, and that's where it gets irritating, because it's all looks so bland, even with the visual language.
That is the issue, is that it does very much, because it has to be a realistic urban environment, sometimes that does come at the risk of, not... Like, it kind of feels like your character should, is from Philadelphia, or is kind of local enough that he should know this stuff, but even with a mini-map, that's not super well communicated to you.
The mini-map, even with using dots on the map, it sometimes doesn't help, because the one I just complained about, in one of the yellow zones, you're in a very built-up area, like, kind of multi-story apartment blocks, and some of the windows are open, and those you can go in those, and you have to go in and activate a radio to liberate a stronghold. This game's kind of version of towers or fucking base liberation or whatever. And I had to, I looked at the balcony, I looked at the scaffolding, and I was tracing it backwards from the ground level while avoiding soldiers. Like, okay, what's the entrance? And even doing it like that, what I'd consider the smart way of starting at the end and working backwards. It's like cables. When you've got a bunch of cables knotted up and you have to pull them apart. And it's...
Yeah. There's literally moments like that in this game in regards to following cables to find out where the box is, where you have to use the hacking tool, which disables them with an EMP, but if you get it at just the wrong angle, it's not going to activate.
Oh yeah, hacking tools. Yeah, those things you use to activate some forklifts.
Yep.
So, yeah, sometimes that one fucked me for a while, because I took the break and I came back and I forgot hacking tools existed, and I walked around a warehouse for like 20 minutes, like, well, how do I get up there?
What do I do?
Oh, I throw a hacking tool at a forklift. All right, that was kind of my own fault, but this game is very unintuitive at times. I'll say that. Like, not just in regards to the hacking tool, but yeah, it feels like, I'll say it's much more condensed and much more focused than a Far Cry. Part of the problem is I don't think it can figure out the best use of all of its toolkit.
No, and do you know what I'll say as well? I think the reason that it is more condensed than a Far Cry game probably was an intentional design.
No. That was probably
more
budget.
Than it. Yeah,
the fact it works out to its favor is a happy
serendipity,
accident.
I guess.
Yeah.
I guess though, it is funny that we've started talking about Far Cry and the games that kind of Far Cry inspired, because the Snake, as you probably remember from the Haze episode, what game was it that Ubisoft famously fucked over Haze on in order to promote?
Well, that was TimeSplitters.
No. I mean, what was Ubisoft focusing on instead of, they took money out of Haze because they wanted to focus on their own projects?
I actually can't remember. I'm sorry. Was it fucking Homefront? No.
It was Far Cry 2.
It was Far Cry 2. Yeah. Bad memory. That makes sense.
So literally right at the beginning of that year, they basically said to they said to Free Radical, look, fuck you, kiss our butts. Far Cry 2 is the future. That's where we're putting our money. You no longer have any money. Just put out Haze, and as a result, like Haze doesn't sell. Haze comes out and it's a fucking disaster, sales wise. And well, actually no, because it was number 3 in the sales for a little bit, but then dropped off like a stone immediately afterwards. But like the reputation of Free Radical Design was just ruined from that point on. Any of the projects that they had sold on their Haze engine, nobody was interested in because Haze was such a technical disaster. They fucked over. LucasArts fucked them over in 2 ways. One, because they had to put more bodies on Haze to get it over the line, but also they had changed management at LucasArts and they had decided, why are we making games? What is the point in this? And they just cut the funding on Battlefront 3, so that didn't go through. And so yeah, as a result, like Free Radical was kind of left in a weird period of just like drifting away at sea. Like the last project that they potentially could have like kept the lights on for just a little bit longer was they did pitch to Activision whether they wanted a GoldenEye remake, which they mulled for about 20 minutes before saying no, not at this time. Only for 2 years later to then do a GoldenEye remake with Eurocom. So
great, lovely story,
awesome.
very
Awesome,
very happy and fulfilling. And I don't know, this miniseries we're doing is called Future Perfect, but I fucking well think it could be Sins of the Past is just as much an appropriate title because they just keep getting fucking haunted by ghosts of their goddamn past.
Oh, fucking GoldenEye 007 keeps coming back to haunt them.
Yeah. Well, also, just in a thought I had months ago, Rare also were, the masters of the collectathon, which in my mind I consider the, the base, the predecessor to the modern checklist kind of free roamer.
That's funny because my boiling hot take was that we don't really get a game like the original Far Cry or Far Cry 2 without GoldenEye being, well, you could just go to the end of the level. But actually, we would want you to do little missions in between and do, like, go off and solve little problems and stuff like that. And the harder you make the game, the more little stuff you can do. And that kind of naturally then evolves into what Far Cry 2 is, which is, yeah, you can do story missions, but you can also wander off and do these little activities that will actually have, like... Because the only reason you did it in GoldenEye was to, get silver and... Well, it was like TimeSplitters. You did it for bragging rights. But then what Ubisoft figured out was... I guess people way before Ubisoft, because like the open world FPS game wasn't invented with Far Cry 1 or Far Cry 2. Like, it existed before then. But, like, they figured out the appeal of... Well, if you liberate a base, that removes enemies from that area, will flag up stuff that you can collect, which otherwise you would have had to have been lucky and found that stuff on your own. Hey, maybe we can use these spaces as well as, like, for replenishing health and buying ammo and stuff like that. So, eventually you do kind of see the evolution from something like GoldenEye, where you're doing those activities for bonus points, to where we end up now, where the activities are the juice, essentially.
Yeah. The kind of extras kind of floated their way to the top. I think it's a potpourri. Not a potpourri. I think it's a petri dish. I think we're both kind of... There's a design lineage. I think Collectathons had as much to do with it, or maybe a bit less, because what you're saying makes more sense.
Yeah.
The point I'm kind of making is there's a horrible, tragic irony in... While I do consider this just... the furthest flung reaches from the raw creativity and fun of TimeSplitters, there is a sense of coming home to roost in them making what is a modern rendition of a collectathon game.
Yeah, I definitely see that. And that is like such a funny way to think about it, because this kind of design, the Assassin's Creed design, does come out of GTA 3, and GTA 3 doesn't exist without Super Mario 64 or Banjo-Kazooie. So... It is all it's very short walks.
It's not quite linear. It's a web of bizarre connections and creativity and influences.
That's the fun of the podcast, is just being able to just pull at a roots and see where it pulled from. Like the amount of stuff that like Medal of Honor wasn't like fucking Steven Spielberg's kids were playing GoldenEye and he said, what if I could do that before my new film, Saving Private Ryan?
Yeah.
And that's how we end up with the FPS game that invents the fucking modern military shooter.
Yeah, that's what led to Medal of Honor, and Medal of Honor was usurped by Call of Duty, and then
Which
Medal
had
of Honor tried to...
which had the developers. They had
Yeah.
the Allied Assault Medal of Honor developers went to form Infinity Ward. It's mad.
It's bizarre. It's just... Yeah, no, games are a horrible, small, incestuous space.
They really are. And the worst thing is, it's just the fact that, because not only does Goat and I keep coming back to haunt them, but the fact that Ubisoft destroyed... Well, I mean...
It crippled them.
It crippled... It was a death by 1,000 blows. It wasn't just that, but
It's
like probably the
basically
biggest...
they took beating after beating making great games until they didn't make great games, but kept going.
So there were two interesting facts that I found out, which I'm just going to very quickly slip in, which I think you might find in... Well, actually, got three interesting facts that you might find interesting.
Ooh.
Second Sight was originally going to be made at Activision.
Uh-huh.
And then...
that was their big first pitch, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was Redemption, which they originally pitched to IDOS. IDOS went under, they took it to Activision, and basically their selling point was, hey, we have half a game here. Are you interested? And what happened was that Activision took them on for a couple of months, paid the bills, and then they changed hands, and Bobby Kotick got involved and basically said to him three things. We don't like working with outside developers, we don't like working with UK developers, and we certainly don't like working with developers who want to keep their own IP.
Oh, right.
All three of those things apply to Free Radical Design Limited, and so they were taken off of the project. The reason they went to Codemasters is because Carl Hilton knew somebody there, and Codemasters were basically at a bit of a financial low point, and the big appeal to them was, oh, you have a finished game.
That won't cost much to get out there.
No, we'll throw a tiny bit of marketing behind it, and hell, we'll help you out with doing a PC port, but yeah, we just need a dub. Like, we just need to keep the lights on for a little bit, and that's kind of how... That's how Second Sight happens at Codemasters. When they originally pitched it to IDOS as Redemption, this isn't that I didn't know. Do you know who is his name Steve Jackson? The fighting fantasy guy.
Steve Jackson? I thought he was in tabletop games.
No, he is. Yeah, he's the head of Games Workshop. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense with the UK side of things, and they did used to do games development in the 80s and I think early 90s.
Yeah, not Steve Jackson, Ian Livingston, who is the guy who invented the fighting fantasy books, where it's like, you see an orc. If you want to punch him, go to page 6.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to run away, go to page 17. But he was also the head of Games Workshop, but he was also the head of IDOS at the time. He said that, we'll do Redemption with you, but can you please add demons to it?
Oh, that would be lame. That'd be so lame. Thank God that
they got
didn't
lucky
happen.
by IDOS going to so that they didn't have to make a supernatural spy game for them.
Oh my God, I'm glad that didn't happen, even though it's another just kind of horrible part of their history. These developers are cursed, man.
Well, here's the final
Ironically.
bit of the curse. Because I remember listening back, I was listening back previously to the TimeSplitters 3 episode that we did, where I was like, oh, actually, EA, whatever, blah, blah, blah. No, EA, fucking even worse than I thought. They basically said to him, this game's not going to sell unless you have a lead character in it. And they basically pushed over a picture of Vin Diesel across the table and said, this guy, please. And so... that's how we end up with Cortez being the lead throughout.
I don't know. I don't think that's a sign of EA being evil. And they are evil. I'm not going to fucking pretend for a second, but that's just really funny. No,
according to Doke, EA Partners was this part of EA that was involved with third-party things. EA Partners is still around. They're doing that new Omega Force game, which just looks like Monster Hunter, which is so bizarre that it's an EA game, but, whatever. Alright, according to Doke, it was a bit like being groomed,
Oh.
Here's all these friendly, avuncular people that will give you all the love and attention you need to get your game out. And then after a while, they go away, and all the bad guys come around, and it's like you're in Borstal, getting held down, beating around the head with a cue ball and a sock.
Fucking hell.
Is how he described working with EA. Because
was he watching the movie Scum before he came into this interview?
Yeah, he was. Him and EA were all watching Scum at the same time, and EA said, these guys get the right idea. In retrospect, what happened after TimeSplitters 2 was that EA saw the Metacritic and came to us, says Ellis. I don't actually think they'd look at the game very much. The publisher demanded Future Perfect have a strong lead character in order for that to appeal to the US market. Which makes sense, but yeah, apparently they gave him pictures of Vin Diesel, but they also pushed over pictures of like Wesley Snipes in his Blade outfit. I was like, can we get characters like this? I think it's a shame that we didn't get a character like Blade.
No, I can't think of a Wesley Snipes Blade character. That would have been bizarre.
In the zombie level, they could have replaced Mary Jo Beth with Blade.
Yeah, but keep the shirt, obviously.
Oh yeah, no, a slut. Yeah,
yeah, just have a Wesley Snipes analog wearing a slut shirt.
He's just dressed like a Hot Topic teen, but it's just Wesley Snipes.
He has very obviously photoshopped eyes open on him.
God. Throughout the development of Future Perfect, we had EA people all the time coming to us and saying, yeah, your game's okay, but not as good as the GoldenEye game that we're making.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah, they just kept coming in and fucking big dogging them about how fucking good Rogue Agent was going to be.
What the fuck is wrong with the universe that this just kept happening?
No, I know, and it's bizarre. Like, just all these publishers just kept fucking big dogging, like. And I'm not saying that, they should have paid them respect because they invented GoldenEye.
But it's like, yes, the bizarre amount of trouble and cruelty they faced. And here we are years later, and I am at least kind of shitting on their last effort. As of now, last effort. Hopefully not forever last effort.
No, we do talk about that a little bit in regards to Embracer, maybe. And I say may, because we haven't seen anything yet. My money is on, if we do see any Embracer projects, it will probably be like a Battle of Bikini Bottom, Destroy All Humans style HD remaster of the second one. That seems like a safe bet.
Yeah.
But even then, that's not like a complete safe bet, because we haven't heard or seen anything yet. They only incorporated in 2001, though, so we might be a bit of a ways off seeing anything. But yeah, so they just kept getting fucking dogged from like every corner, and as a result, just come like Christmas 2008, they're all ready to like receive their bonuses, and they have to come out and tell like 140 members of staff, you're not back in the new year. We're going into administration. Like, interestingly enough, one of the publishers that nearly bought them out was Rebellion, which, I mean, I'm interested in doing Rebellion on the podcast at some point because they are such a weird, long-running UK developer and publisher. And like, I can see in my head, yeah, like Free Radical are a good fit for Rebellion. They have a very similar temperament and, probably shared a lot of talent because the British games industry is only as big as it is. But yeah, as a result, no offers were made until, much like the episode of The Simpsons where the Germans buy out the power plant, Crytek bought Free Radical Design Limited because, funnily enough, they had also partnered with EA for Crysis, which seemed to go swimmingly well, probably because no Americans knew how to speak German and could go in and fucking big dog them, so they had no idea what was going on.
Yeah, a bunch of American guys coming in and just going, schnell.
Schnell. Yeah, exactly. It's just, yeah, they're just like looking at Crysis with its like fucking photoreal leaves and going, oh yeah, we got a Bond game, I guess. Doesn't look like this. We got nothing. Maybe they might have been humbled after fucking Rogue Agent shat the bed.
Das ist Bond.
Yeah, das ist Bond, yeah. But yeah, Crytek interesting developer, mostly because it's like one of those classic stories of Turkish-German brothers like formed a games company like in their bedroom essentially because they were all like in the demo scene, and then said, "Oh, we're all very good at programming. Why don't we put a demo together?" And in '99 they put out this thing called Exile, which is this tech demo for this it's sort of like real-time rendered island with like lush trees and stuff and dinosaurs wandering about, which is very exciting. Nvidia see this and they go, "We're showing this at E3 this year to like promote our cards," and as a result, Crytek just become like white hot for like the next few years because nobody's seen technology like this. Ubisoft cuts them a deal and says, "We will fund a full version of Exile," and that becomes the first Far Cry game. Then they
take the IP. And walk away.
Well, in 2004, the German police turn up at the Crytek offices because they're using cracked copies of Photoshop and fucking 3DS Max. Which just makes me laugh so much because, when I was in university, I may have dabbled in, pirated versions of the software, but I didn't decide to start a company and make a incredibly successful game out of it. Yep. So... yeah, they were kind of left at wit's end, and Ubisoft basically said, "Yeah, we'll help you out, but we want the IP." EA comes fucking flying in and says, "Hey, bad news, guys, but do you want to partner up on something?" And the Crytek looking to still have some kind of control over IP. They say, "Well, Far Cry's just a name, who cares? Give it to Ubisoft. Well, sell it to Ubisoft. Buddy up with EA," and that's how we end up with Crysis, but also how we also end up with all the weird Far Cry spin-offs like Evolution and Primal Instinct and Velociraptor, whatever the fuck is
Far Cry Velociraptor, I remember that one. It's the last good
I will
one
say,
they made.
it is weird that they haven't made a Far Cry game with dinosaurs in it yet, considering that's like where the original demo began.
Well, they made Primal, and I've probably told this story, but I have wanted a good caveman game forever.
Yeah.
And I was watching like the stream and I was like, tribal kind of cave paintings, whatever. Like it had a countdown. I was like, this could be cool. This could be cool. And then Far Cry appeared on screen. I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. I was immediately disappointed. I was watching that fucking live stream review. I was like, fuck.
Ah, for fuck's sake.
Yeah.
And it's so funny because it's all the Ubisoft stuff of like, oh, we hired a linguistic expert to come up with a conlang of what we would believe that, cavemen spoke to each other. Like, they go through all of that stuff, but also, there's like Flintstone towers, I guess. There's Flintstone bases too.
You get in a little car and you wobble your legs and it goes really fast.
Yeah.
It became apparent I had purchased the fucking caveman's car.
The caveman car, if you bump it too many times, it sets on fire, and then you get an achievement for inventing fire, which is pretty cool. That game needed dinosaurs, which unfortunately wouldn't have made sense because
there's another problem with Ubisoft. They are way too self-serious. They are pretentious wankers.
That's the problem. Which we
also,
know
they're
about
sex pests. That's another problem.
They're also, all of them are allegedly all sex pests.
No, please
allegedly.
sue me. You are not alleged.
I would like to set Bullet Time and myself would like to separate ourselves from some
the words of the Snaker do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of
the Bullet Time podcast. Allegedly, take him to court, not me, please. Thank you. And the weird thing is that because of this EA deal that they have, they still get to keep the license of their proprietary engine. And eventually, with Crysis, they release Cryengine, and it goes on to be this like there's a weird time where it was like
Crysis had the meme "Can it run Crysis?" because at the higher ends it was an absurdly good looking game, very hard to run. I
can't run it on my computer; it's still too advanced for that, unfortunately. So I'll have to play Warhead on the Xbox to see what it's like. But Yeah, but like everybody was into the Cryengine, and that's how we ended up with like Prey, State of Decay. Everyone's gone to the Rapture, and most importantly to you, Snake,
Sonic Boom.
Rise of Lyric is made in Cryengine.
I had that one in the bag because I'm a
Yeah,
fan.
that's funny. I had that written down.
Yeah.
But
No, I followed the pre-release. Yeah, I heard it's like, oh, it's on Crytek, and you're thinking it's the ugliest, most boring game ever made.
But also, it was like, why did you use Crytek so we could have massive environments, right? But Cryengine wasn't designed to run on the Wii U. Oh yeah, we know that. So there's going to be some technical hiccups, and it's like, oh, but then what was the point?
It's almost like these people weren't quite sure what they were doing.
It was almost like Sega didn't really give them a lot of like direction or anything like that.
It was like big red button. You got former Uncharted devs. Like, wow.
Yeah, and Sanzaru, whatever they're called, not Sanzaru, Sucker Punch, people who made Thingy-Bobble. But Crysis is a big success for EA and for Crytek, and eventually they do 2 more games, and they are flush with cash, so they decide it's time to expand. So they buy a studio in Kiev, a studio in South Korea, and perhaps most interestingly in 2008, pulling them out of the midst of administration, they buy Free Radical Design and rename them Crytek UK.
Yep.
Which makes sense because I don't know about the original Crysis. Does the original Crysis even have a multiplayer mode?
I don't know, actually.
No, neither do
I think it does, but I could well be wrong.
I remember that the second and the third one, the big selling point was, we've gone back into the Cryengine and we're going to make it run really good on the 360 and PS3. And
there's a lot of conflicting statements about their intentions with Crysis 2 and 3, which can sound rather condescending if you dig into like, oh, we wanted to get this to a bigger market, and we wanted to streamline it, but we also wanted it for more. I don't know. It's a bizarre. It's them trying to, in the best terms possible, say we want a game that will sell better. While also not sounding like we have given up on the ideals we kind of had with Crysis being this big fucking, graphics pushing game.
Sure, I kind of get it in regards to like, you've proven that you can make the best looking game on the PC, but like the next trick is, can you pull that off? Like, I can see that from the aspect of, if you can pull that off on consoles,
that would have probably been the smart thing to say. That's not what they said.
No, and also, like, this was 2010, which means they would have been in the arms race of Unreal, who, hey, we got the Unreal Engine working on the iPhone. Hey, you can make AAA level experiences on a fucking mobile phone. And so they were probably looking at this like, oh, if we want to be successful as an engine, we have to like be everywhere. And I can also see
it was kind of a down period for PC gaming as well, because the effects of Microsoft paying a bunch of studios to not release their games on PC. It's gotten a lot better since, and there were good PC games at the time, but yeah, that was when it was like, hey, if you want this, you buy a console, you get on 360.
Yeah, like, it was weird. They built games with, like, the 360 money, and I always think it's weird because it feels like it was the original idea of the Xbox, like, the first one that they made in 01 was, well, it's a PC in your living room, which is why it's got a Thief game and a Deus Ex game and, like, all these relatively well-known PC franchises. They tried to make like, Rollercoaster Tycoon has an Xbox port, which is so weird, but then the 360 comes around, and they basically do manage to achieve that, but by being dead cheap, a really easy way to get into HD content, and the online stuff is robust enough that you don't feel like, oh, well, I need a PC for like that experience. But then, yeah, as you said, as a result, it creates this weird schism where console design becomes PC, like consoles become the premier platform, and everything's kind of designed around console control schemes and console limitations. I mean, fucking, that's what happened to Deus Ex Invisible War.
Yep.
Where the original game was designed with the fact that they had 128 mega standard on PCs, whereas the original Xbox only had 64. And so all these huge environments had to be like shrank.
Especially because they wanted lighting effects and physics and It's funny, actually. There's a couple fun things about this game. Well, the one I will say is the game crashes and resets between every level load. Apparently, it just needs to do that. That might actually, you know what? In a way, that might actually work for its favor. I don't know, because if you do it,
yeah,
you're
I guess
starting
it
from
clears
zero.
RAM, I suppose.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
And just the other one, which was just the funny name it had, which was Deus Xbox.
Oh, yeah.
It's the most obvious joke in the world, but you gotta make it because
You gotta do it.
they've consolified a PC classic.
I will say, though, Crysis 2, if your big selling point is this is console Crysis, yeah, making it look good is pretty good. But also, if you can have the people who made one of the best console multiplayer games considered of all... Like, probably at this point, people would think that TimeSplitters 2 is a certified, like, solid gold game.
Yeah.
Oh, those guys are making your Crysis multiplayer? I have to buy this game. And so it's win-win, essentially, for fucking Crytek.
Yeah, we talked about this in an earlier episode, and I remember what I said, which was, you know, having free radical guys just doing your multiplayer for a Crysis game. It's like having Shakespeare locked up in your shed and making him write adverts. It's a criminal kind of underutilization of the talent you have.
It's Beethoven writing fucking Tesco jingles. It's ridiculous, you know?
It's good and bad, because, yeah, they save them from oblivion. But I don't know, it's like, it's a dark period, you know? Or it's just a kind of meandering one. You've got these people who could make absolute bangers, but they just don't have the resources or sway or power to do it anymore, effectively neutered and working for a company that made, I don't know, fine games.
Yeah, I mean, Crysis 2, I have played it. It's okay, is how I would describe it. Might be a game it's a game of a quality that I would say
I've
we
played
would probably
a
cover
bit of
on
one
bullet
and a
time.
bit of two, and, you know, the fact I haven't finished either is why I hold the opinion I just presented.
Yeah. No, Crysis is nobody's...
Crysis 1 I can someone's favourite. There's some people who genuinely like Crysis 1 because it has a lot of the good elements of Far Cry, which is freedom of approach and all of that, big winding levels, and the nanosuit does let you have some fun with it. Like, you can, you know, turn on strength and throw barrels at people or throw cars or toss, you know, enemies into the lakes or whatever, and, you know...
It is funny, because when you were talking earlier about, like, what the appeal is of a sandbox, that is the stuff that I think has taken me 25 odd years to figure out. Oh, that's the juice with a sandbox game is, and I hate to bring it up as an example because I'm the only person on this podcast who likes it that much. But Breath of the Wild, I think, was probably the one that people that was basically that was the thing that unlocked people's brains of figuring out what we like about sandbox games, which is, oh, if I set this shrub on fire, then the fire can propagate and set some shit on fire. That is cool. Oh, I can use this metal box to, like, attract electricity and stuff. Like, all that kind of, like, chemistry and physics stuff playing off each other, that's the juice of a sandbox game.
For me, and it might become an episode in future, might not, it's one I suggested and pushed, was Boiling Point.
Yes.
Boiling Point predates, I believe, or, like, it does what Far Cry was doing, but it does it earlier and better. Which is basically... You're a single person in a large roaming country, and you've got one objective, which is find your daughter. And then you can go around and you can do objectives, you can make connections, and you can learn stuff. And it does have a lot of Far Cry isms, but the world is very set, it's very hostile, and you just feel like a part of it. And you get side missions to, like, oh, assassinate this guy, go here and do this. But because of the hostility and danger of the world and your own relatively lacking abilities, the world feels very, very... It forces you to play clever and go above your means. And that's kind of what I like in a sandbox. I like a sandbox to be not necessarily, here is a world with a bunch of repeat objectives that you, as this great player, can achieve in it. For me, a good sandbox is, this whole world is a challenge. It's on you to overcome it.
Yeah, I totally see... I mean, it's funny, because I was thinking of...
And I think, I'm going to be honest, because Breath of the Wild is my favourite Legend of Zelda game, but just because I don't consider it very much like Zelda games.
The other Zelda Zeldas
dislike. But I see where you're coming from in that, like, the whole world feels like this series of systems that you can learn to use to overcome challenges. I wish the challenges were harder, and I wish they were a bit more. I wish they were a bit more varied in their approach. That's kind of Breath of the Wild. I had fun in it for about 10 hours, and then I was like, I feel like I'm on a loop now. I feel like I'm going back to where I started and just doing the same things, and it's not engaging.
No, I think that's Breath of the Wild has the potential of, it has an incredibly over-engineered system for solving problems, but the problems are still classic Legend of Zelda problems where they were only ever really designed with one solution. But when you then do achieve solutions through other means, that makes you feel really good.
Yeah.
But the game isn't really built around that.
See, I made a video on it, I think. I actually can't remember the own videos I've made, but I don't know if it's a problem that game developers can solve because it's very tricky to pass, which is, and I think Boiling Point does do this, which is, in Boiling Point, managing to pull off the simple solution feels satisfying because, say you've got an enemy, you need to think, if you can get in position and snipe that person, one bullet, bang, in and out, it feels satisfying because you know all of the issues you've avoided. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, you can mostly just go in with your sword and mop up the problem. So it's like it's like doing any solution that's more eclectic or clandestine or crazy is actually more work than the simple solution, and you haven't actually expended much, or you haven't actually saved much that you would have expended.
And it's funny because Breath of the Wild has the same issue that MGS5 does, which MGS5 doesn't exist without Far Cry 3 or 2. Yeah. Which is, you have 15 different solutions to stuff, but there is always a guaranteed solution, and that pretty much just flattens choice for the most part.
Like, you can get a bunch of boxes and trick mines and Fultons and throw magazines, or you can park your ass like a kilometer away with a trank sniper, and why do anything but that?
And it's funny because it feels like MGS5 has been out now since 8 years. It will be 8 years old this year. But nobody's quite figured out how to... The solution to that, which is, create situations where parking a car and doing that isn't going to be the solution. But because it aims for this kind of level of naturalism and, it's a war zone. So, war zone stuff will make...
You gotta do what you gotta do.
You just do what you do,
Yeah, it makes sense from a pragmatic perspective, but the problem is pragmatism is often very dull. Rational decisions and optimization, a lot of people strive for that, and I kind of, it feels satisfying to be optimized, but also you have to fight a player's instinct to kind of put them in a position where they have to do something more crazy and daring. But then if you force that, then you've got the opposite problem. It's a never-ending cycle.
By the way, folks, I will say at home, everything that we're kind of saying here, this also very much applies to Homefront the Revolution.
We haven't gone completely off the rails, though...
No, we have not gone off the rails, because this is all... Because Homefront the Revolution is very much a modern-style Far Cry 3 game,
It's along the path we're talking about. It's, on the same road, which...
If you have an open world and you have multiple approaches to stuff, encourage that, rather than... Do you know what's funny? And it's another stupid tangent that I'm taking, but it feels like the only game that I know of that I've played that kind of fixes that problem, but it does it in the most blunt, forced way possible, is Super Mario Odyssey, which forces you to engage with other mechanics, because unlike Zelda, where you can just use a sword for everything, every single scenario in Odyssey is handcrafted around one solution, but they're all incredibly varied solutions.
Yeah.
Which, that's a way to fix it, but that still doesn't quite get to, I guess, what we want, which is improv.
It's, and another game that kind of had the opposite problem lately, and this is a, genre of open world, but different approach. We both played it, Sonic Frontiers. I like Frontiers, but that game feels like a serving menu of just doing every mechanic it has over and over again. And it's like, do you remember this mechanic? Do the mechanic and you get the thing. And it's like, okay, all right. But there's no real nuance to it. There's no real, you can't, as Sonic, think, oh, there's a thing up there. Well, I'll cleverly run down this hill, up this valley, do a big jump and skip to the end. It's, oh, there's a rail, I'll use the rail then. Oh, there's a clearly delineated wall jump section, I'll do the wall jump section. It's the problem with a lot of open world games in that sometimes a lot of the time they feel no more advanced than the fucking, like, educational games I played as a kid where the solution was, do you remember this thing? Do the thing. Cool, you've learned. Have a thing.
Press a button in time. Follow a and it's so funny. I'm shocked that I haven't really seen. I mean, long enough timeline, maybe we will. But Sonic Frontiers feels like the Emperor has no clothes, but for like this entire genre of games, where it's so kind of blatant in its design, but it is so evocative of everything else that you can use Frontiers essentially as your tabula rasa to kind of like pull this genre apart, because
because all of the rails and floating platforms, it's just what all these other games are doing but stripped of artifice.
Exactly. Yeah, Sonic is so, which again, like, that's kind of a thing that I like about Sonic the Hedgehog anyways, is that it does lean on the art. Like, that is part of the fact that it has a postmodern art aesthetic to it, is that it leans into that stuff. It doesn't go, oh, well, why would there be bumpers and stuff? It's like, because it's a video game, because he's a video game character, that is why there are bumpers like that. But you play it and you go, oh, Breath of the Wild is like this, except that it's not floating rails, it's randomly placed enemies in an environment where they probably wouldn't be naturally, or it's Korok puzzles, or it's treasure chests and stuff like that, and you go, oh, this is just Tony Hawk on steroids. This is... you chain from one activity to another, because it's the dopamine hit of, I'm constantly doing stuff, I'm constantly achieving. Again, like Homefront the Revolution, that's the magic trick, is that as long as they can keep you doing stuff, and you're having a good time, you stick with it.
And that's, going back to Far Cry, that was a part of where my disillusionment came from, is you do this same song and dance enough times, you start realizing, it's like seeing the fucking code in the Matrix.
You see the strings.
Yeah, you see the strings like, I've been here before, I've done this, why am I still doing this? Next year, they'll just throw me another plate of gruel to pick through. And it's
a different world, it's a different antagonist, but it's the same. And it was so funny because I had never properly played Far Cry 2 until a couple of weeks ago.
Now, Far Cry 2 works better for a lot of the reasons I talked about, which is the artifice is a lot better, the map is a diegetic object, a lot of it is framing. A little framing can go a long way. And with Far Cry, you don't clear out checkpoints because they'll always come back, so they're always a threat, so the world always feels hostile. And it's why the game works better, in my opinion, because...
Yeah. And I totally agree with, and it's funny because I played 3 first, and I've played games like 3 for the past 15 odd years or whenever. Well, 3 came out in 2012, 2013, so yeah, over a decade at this point. And they all follow the same template and the same song and dance. But you play 2, which is like, basically it's not, I wouldn't even call it the rough prototype, because it has basically all the stuff that 3 had. But it is just so much more a meaner game and has so much friction to it, because again, it is going for a very specific tone. I mean, it's fucking Heart of Darkness. It's, I'm in a place I don't like and I'm going mental, and then it turns out I'm as bad as the villain. That's the story. But it has wildfires, it has all these kind of enemy factions that hate here. And it is a mean game. Like, the mini-map is a physical map that you have to pull out like Minecraft to figure out where to go. And just that element of, oh, I could okay, so if I need to drive a place, I know I need to turn a left here and then follow over the bridge and then and just those little bits of movement was really cool. But then in Far Cry 3, they smooth all that stuff down to make it a more appealing thing. And again, I had never played a game like Far Cry 3 when it came out. Loved it. I mean, because the game is literally just, rather than Heart of Darkness, have you ever read Alex Garland's The Beach?
I have never read The Beach.
Have you seen the film The Beach?
The Shyamalan film.
No. Well, Old. The Beach That Makes You Old.
Yeah,
or
Old, The Beach That Makes You Old. No, I've not. No.
Okay, so basically it is literally just about an American backpacker who discovers this, island which is decadent and is next to a weed farm, and it's like paradise on earth, but then it turns out actually maybe not as cool as he thought, and then he takes so many drugs that he loses his mind, essentially. Doesn't that sound a lot like Far Cry 3?
I guess so, yeah.
Yeah, that's Ubisoft. They read a book and say, "Oh, that's our next game." And they did Heart of Darkness, and then they did the beach, and then they said, "Actually, every single Far Cry game that we make is just going to be the beach, but in different places from now on."
It's bizarre as well because even their fucking villains are repetitive. They did Rise, and then like, oh cool, charismatic crazy guy. That's our template from now on. The villain is kind of right. That's.
Even funnier than that, though, was that they tried 3 different villains and then said, "Oh, well, what were the one in 3? Well, he was a Better Call Saul guy. Oh, let's get Giancarlo Esposito for Far Cry 6." We're gonna get fucking we're gonna get Walt. Well, not Walt.
Hell
so
yeah!
let's
get Brian Cranston.
We will get. Oh no! Imagine that they're like, "Oh, okay, we hear you loud and clear. We got the main character of Breaking, but it's Aaron Paul as the next villain in Far Cry." I'd be okay with that, actually.
I mean, I won't play it, but I'd be okay.
Oh no, I'm not going to play it, but I'll appreciate it.
Fuck, I'm trying to remember. We have done laps around this game at this point, developmentally, gameplay-wise, its influences.
So why did Crytek make a Homefront? Why did they make a Homefront sequel?
Okay, actually, yeah, let's just talk about now. So, Homefront: The Revolution, which is a Ubisoft-style sandbox developed by Dambusters, is a soft reboot of an earlier game called Homefront.
Published by THQ and developed by Chaos Studios, who had only made 2 games, their last one being Homefront, and the game before being called Frontline's Fuel of War, which, do you know anything about that?
No. I've heard the name. I think it's an online-only multiplayer shooter game.
Which has some, it has a campaign mode, which is essentially just remixed multiplayer with, rather than bots, it's all kind of... This is a bullet time game, full stop, as in... Nobody bought it, nobody played it, but weirdly ambitious ideas in regards to the game. So the multiplayer has a system called the Frontline, and essentially the way that maps work is that it's like gridiron football, where you are constantly moving the front line forward into the enemy's base, or they're pushing it towards yours. And how you basically the way that you push the front line is either by shooting people on the other team, regular team deathmatch, or by doing objectives. It was one of the first early multiplayer games where they tried to weave in small objectives like assassinate a VIP or steal some stuff.
That sounds very cool and a little overcomplicated.
A little bit, but they basically Homefront was the plan with that was that, hey, you guys have something really cool with the Frontline system. That's the multiplayer, but you need a single-player campaign. And they go off and they do research and they decide, well, Half-Life 2, that's the gold standard. We're going to make our own Half-Life 2 style game. And Call of Duty is already teasing the idea of going into Modern Warfare, and they go, right, we're going to do the same thing as well. What can be our unique selling point? And they decided, what if we did speculative fiction? Because America hasn't really got any enemies at the moment. Ha ha. So what if we create one? What if we, rather than aliens or anything like that, what if we do a speculative fiction thing of another superpower decides to invade the US?
And shit, it cannot be China.
They get John Milius involved, who was the right-wing crank who wrote Conan the Barbarian and Red Dawn, and he said, well, those Chinese, them communists, they're the enemy. They need to be, they're the ones to worry about. Now, they decided to replace them with unified Korea for 2 reasons. 1, the risk of a possible backlash by the Chinese Ministry of Culture, and the reality of economic independence between America and China that made the Chinese, quote-unquote, not that scary.
So now you've got the author of Red Dawn, and he has to write a plausible scenario where Korea can unify and pose a credible threat to the US.
Well, even better than that, John Milius doesn't have to do anything. Because according to Chaos writer C.J. Kirshner, who wrote the script, he said, Milius didn't write a single word, but he did consult with us during the writing.
He just sat in a room talking about how much he hated the
He sat in a
can't
room
even say the
counting
next word.
out the dollar bills that they pay, because John Milius he's a gold standard guy as well. They couldn't cut him. They couldn't pay it into his debit account. They had to pay him in actual dollars, and he was probably just licking them and putting them on the table.
One by one.
Homefront, for people who haven't played the game, is set in a wacky universe where, following the death of King Jong-il, his son, King Jong-un, peacefully reunified North and South Korea, combining the North's military and the South's economic strength. Meanwhile, a war between Iran and Saudi Arabia causes oil supplies to skyrocket, which, funnily enough, that is also the plot of Frontline's Fuel of War. So they were already on this thing
same universe.
What if fuel becomes too expensive? I don't know. So in 2022, the US has been further crippled by bird flu and the global financial crisis, which...
You know what?
Okay.
Maybe we should keep an eye on Korea.
Yeah, maybe. And then in 2025,
Not
so
bird
2
flu,
years'
but-
time, Korea launches a satellite that fires an EMP that wipes out America's electrical infrastructure. They then invade the US and conquer it. The game picks up in 2027, where you're a resistance fighter. And you basically fight the resistance, and then the end of the game is the EU decides, hey, you're good, let's help you out.
And that's Homefront 1. They redo the reason... They redo the world history in Homefront the Revolution to make it... I don't even know if you'd call it better or worse. Just different.
Stupider. It is definitely dumber. I will say, though, so... I couldn't quite get a reason for why Crytek wanted the Homefront IP, but they basically agreed with THQ, yeah, you got juice here, and we're going to support you. To the extent of when THQ then went into administration in, 2013.
Oh, actually, sorry, just to quickly thing... So the first Homefront, because I played a little
go
as a friend
ahead.
on it, just so we can quickly sum up what it actually is in play, it's a very boring Call of Duty-esque game at the end of it.
Yeah.
It's very bland, it's very set-piece heavy. It's Call of Duty, but without the money to make the explosions satisfying. Except for one level at the end. So,
The funniest thing
that's
about
all you're
Homefront 1 has this really funny quote attributed to it, which I think I read it, Doc Brufford or whatever his name is, the guy who writes games essays, mentioned it in one of his essays, which was, when Chaos were working on the first Homefront, the writer that they brought on, not Milius, but somebody else, was like, the plot that you're telling here and the story that you're telling, because the game begins with a Half-Life style.
It begins with the Modern Warfare intro. You're being driven past atrocities.
Oh yeah, which is the classic Half-Life. It was the fucking it's the Epcot train of tomorrow where you go past. Okay, here's here's the world that you live in.
It's Koreans gunning down civilians and people being
blow
tortured.
a hole in a woman's head, and then you watch a child cry for like a minute.
Yeah, it's bizarre. The bus.
Do you know
pulls
that?
up for that.
Do you get it yet? Do you get that this is bad?
Yeah, the bus smashes into a row of school children and then reverses. It's bizarre.
And then does it again. But yeah, so they write this, and the writer goes, "Why aren't you using cuts or anything like? Why aren't you using the language of film to cut between stuff?" And they go, "Well, here's the thing, egghead. All right, you come from the world of scripts. You don't do that in games, okay?" And then when they deliver it and they do a post-mortem, they go, "Oh, this story's really bland because we can only tell it from a single point of view. Why didn't we use any cuts?"
So the Half-Life perspective just did not fucking work.
No, and
I mean, there's an element of Half-Life in the Revolution which doesn't work, so...
That is true, which we will get to.
Yeah.
Sony Santa Monica, though, didn't read that, because their selling point for fucking God of War was no cuts. No cuts ever.
No cuts. No deep cuts.
No deep cuts. So what did Crytek want about it? The game sold 375,000 on its first day, which it wasn't bad, but the reviews were mixed. And basically, IGN said it was too short, but it had interesting moments. And so it's okay, maybe it's something that you could polish up. And I guess Crytek maybe just thought, hey, interesting franchise here. And we've made the Koreans the villains before in Crysis. We We know what to do with this.
We hate those damn Koreans. Let's get the game
Yeah,
going.
we got an issue with them. Even though they opened a South Korean studio, they were like, I don't know, those guys.
Maybe that just deepened the I don't even know. I'm treading on thin ice with these bits.
Yeah, Crytek probably thought that could be our own Call of Duty, and because it's even a bad IP is still a known IP. Was probably what they were thinking as well.
They thought they had some brand power to leverage, I guess.
So
for the Homefront heads out there.
They buy it from THQ in 2013, and they basically go, hey, we're not making this for 2HQ anymore, so let's try something else. And they decide to give it an open world structure inspired by Crackdown. Because at the time, Far Cry wasn't really a thing, but would eventually become a thing very quickly as this game languished in 3 years of development hell.
Right.
And yeah, because Crytek went into administration pretty quickly afterwards, which is why the game just ended up at they sold it. They sold that and Crytek UK to Koch Media and Deep Silver, which is where they got rebranded as Dambuster. The original Homefront director was basically brought in at the time as well to get the project over the line. Famously, this game was released with a ton of technical issues, including poor frame rate and bugs. Neither of us, I think, experienced those because
we've both come into the game has been polished up, though it is still a fucking resource hog.
Oh, yes, it is. I had to put on 2 sets of fans because my laptop was overheating all the time.
My computer sounded like it was going to explode. I have a 3090 and a 59050 or whatever. I have got a top-of-the-line PC. This thing was running 100%. That's bizarre. It's not terribly optimized. Terribly well optimized, I'm afraid.
Jeez. So an hour 20 into the podcast, we will now talk about the game, and we'll begin by Snake, friend of your channel, Ben Yahtzee Crochet, Zero Punctuation, named Homefront: The Revolution the worst game of 2016, citing bugs, bad design, and an awful story, and arguing that the game was obviously a bad idea at the concept stage. Now,
I disagree with that last bit.
I don't know. I played a lot of games in 2016, and
he has to play what's, actually popular week on week, so
he's got a very...
I'm sorry, Yahtzee, if you are listening to this, which is actually a non-zero chance.
That is not zero.
But you don't actually play real dregs. You play AAA, which is boring as fuck, but still. You are consigned to a certain realm.
But this came out the same year as Overwatch.
Hey, it's also
he's calling this the worst game.
Oh, that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. Come on. You had the big one looking right at you.
And Pony Island as well.
You had Tracer's fat ass right in your face.
Literally. There it was.
And you didn't call it the worst game of the year.
Far Cry Homefront: The Revolution, then. Yes. A game that multiple people reached out to tell us that is a game that they genuinely really liked, and
they stopped listening an hour ago.
Oh yeah, no, they dipped off when we started talking about Mario Odyssey. It's yeah, I don't know. It is.
Well, let's start with the story, even though we've talked about.
Let's do the plot. We got to get to racist Fred Flintstone.
We do have to get to racist Fred Flintstone. It's very important. So, the game opens by telling us the New World history, which is really funny. Which is unbelievably funny. So, Korea is unified once again, or maybe not.
Oh no. 1970 in a garage in the Silicon Street or the Silicon River.
So yeah, the Silicon Valley of America doesn't take off, but the Silicon River in Korea does. The tech boom happens over there.
Which is a real thing. The Silicon River is where like Samsung and LG and all these South Korean companies are based. But there's one in particular called Apex, and it starts off as like a guy in his garage, like Apple. But then they become, by 2016, They've become the biggest thing. Phones, drones, televisions.
So
But
there is
more
a really really funny line in this, because it's like, it's presented like this guy's at an Apple keynote, and he's made phones, he's made computers, and like he took off in the 70s and revolutionized computing, and then racist Fred Flintstone, who does the opening narration, is like, and when they made guns, we bought them. It's like, imagine if Apple just started selling firearms.
I'm just like imagining like the Tim Cook like ones that I'm so glad to show you the new iGun, an iGun Plus subscription, and it's like all the bullets have been they all look like fucking Mac Minis. They're just like glossy white, and that'd be good.
Yeah. So and America, meanwhile, is embroiled in a fucking war. It's like the war in the Middle East just never ended, and it's been a quagmire, and
the guns are too good, and it makes the war worse. That's the end of a twist.
Very boring note that only I care about. In the slide when they're like, we bought their guns, he's holding an Apex branded P90, which
cool.
P90 is a Belgian gun, but they're just going for a futuristic looking gun. That's all I bring up.
It's a bullpup, right? Or bullpup style.
It's a personal defense weapon. It's the futuristic looking kind of SMG gun you see in Battlestar Galactica. That's a P90. Yeah.
Taken from the original Homefront, the oil wars still cripple the US, so they still have a big economic downturn. They don't mention avian flu this time, which I feel is a bit of a shame, but
Yeah.
But
I guess they thought, well, we're closer to 2020. There's no pandemics going on. It's fine.
Yeah, that's not even going to happen. We can't see that happening. But the US has basically crippled itself financially, and South Korea has come to call the debt.
Yeah, they default on their debt. And by the way, Korea is unified at this point and isn't a communist country. It's basically a corporatocracy. It is ran by the Apex Corporation.
So I couldn't figure that out from. So did you rewatch the intro and did it say that just
I was
they
reading?
They just hand wave that they reunified again somehow?
I guess I can't fully remember. I could be wrong, but I swear it's like they are basically now ran by a corporation.
Yeah, no, it is. It is a corporatocracy. But I do like the idea of just South Korea just selling so many fucking Samsung phones that America's in debt to them.
So, and because all the guns are ran by Apex and they're Apple, and America defaults on its fucking debt.
Yeah, America's like, we can't pay that.
So they're like, okay, they flip a switch and all the guns turn off.
Well, not only that, but all the technology so all of their devices, like all their phones and computers, were built with a back door according to Fred Flintstone. They all had a back door in them, which basically meant, they could flip a switch, and like the EMP of the last game, this kind of is the same thing of they just stopped all technology from working, and as a result, the US is completely defenseless, and then they come over on boats like they did last time, and 2025, 2 years later, like you end up with occupied Philadelphia and a lot of other parts of the States.
Yeah, and Korea is at first pretending to be magnanimous, and they're giving Americans food, and they're helping them in their shattered economy, but under the surface, they're evil, and slowly their evil becomes clearer and clearer.
That bit was a bit odd, because like the way that they worded it was essentially like, oh yeah, they tried giving us food and stuff, but we just didn't like the idea of having food, and then they went, oh, if you guys are going to be assholes, we're going to crack out the guns.
Could have been like pretense. They were always going to get violent. They were just waiting for Americans to break.
Yeah,
first.
no, I think that was probably more, but the way that they worded it was a bit. Just the way the game worded it was a bit odd.
Yeah, hey, this story's going to be very clunkily told.
Oh, and in fairness, this is the only bit that is like straightforward. Everything else after this point is in cutscenes, and it is impossible to track. So
yeah, this is a very meandering story beyond this point. Like, the backstory is the only part that fucking gets to the point.
Yeah, all it needs to set up is it looks like your neighborhood, but it also looks like Terminator, but like the future parts of Terminator where there's like tanks rolling around and stuff. So
yeah,
don't worry about it.
So you get all that. It manages to sum up 50 years of history in a minute. The next, I don't know, 2 in-game days are going to take a fucking million years.
Yes.
That's the way to sum up the way this story is told, because it cuts to you watching a news report. And this is all in a first-person perspective, this game. This is, once again, a kind of no-cuts wanna sort of deal. Actually, no, it's not quite the case anymore, but basically you're always going to be in Ethan Brady's head. Who is Ethan Brady? What's he about? Who fucking knows?
He's a tubular asset. You can insert yourself into Ethan and...
Yeah. And you're watching a news report about Patriots Day or fucking Veterans Day.
Liberation Day or something.
Yeah. And they tell you to, hey, switch that shit off, and you're in a rebel outpost, and some guy called Walker is coming soon, and Walker, he's gonna scare Mayor Simpson, the defector, the guy who's, sold out to the KPA, the Korean People's Army, but when Walker gets here, he's gonna give those traitors what for.
Now, quick question. Did you assume that Walker was probably the protagonist of the first Homefront?
I thought he was just a bag of crisps. Sorry, a bad joke. No, I don't know what I thought.
Okay, I only thought because of the amount of importance that they were putting on this guy, and the fact that the story basically 2/3 of the plot is, you got to break him out. He's too important. I assumed that, he must have been the protagonist of the first game. No, I looked it up. No, I have no fucking idea who Walker is. Just a guy they put in.
That's the bizarrest thing as well, because one of the first lines they say to Brady is, we know what happened in Washington. It was rough. And I had to Google, okay, where'd the first Homefront take place? Not Washington.
No.
So it's just, you never really get much about your backstory, but you are a very talented revolutionary. So.
You're the most talented revolutionary.
You're the only one who fucking does stuff.
You're the only person who knows how to hack, even though it looks really... It's just the hacking mini game from fucking Batman Arkham Asylum, where you just wiggle the sticks until you get the thing.
You're also the only man qualified to use bolt cutters, which...
I mean, I've played the Resident Evil games. They only let stars. Police officers use those.
But anyway, shit's raided. You're captured, and you are thrown into a room with racist Fred Flintstone, Jack Parrish, and Dana. These two are god-awful characters, and the ones you're going to be talking to the most.
Jack Parrish is the one I like the most, because... And I say that purely because of how genuinely awfully written Dana is as a character. We may have missed a beat in regards to... So, fucking Walker gets kidnapped, and then you run away for a bit, and you go down a tunnel, and you're basically, set upon by the fucking McPoyles from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, who tie you down, and then Dana comes in, and Dana's character is basically, what you would imagine people would lust over as a goth girlfriend, but she is, a genuinely, misanthropic... psychopath.
I actually can't remember a lot of the early plot. I might have it wrong, because I thought you all get captured, and then Walker comes in and saves you, and then he gets captured.
Oh, no, that is what happens, yeah, because again, it's just... It's game the game. It's made out of other games, because the bit where
it's a game of musical chairs, but the Koreans
the game where you're tied up in a
chair
chair is literally the bit from fucking Arkham City where you're being fucking interrogated by Hugo Strange. So it's fucking hell. But yeah, then Walker's Crisps helps you, and then Walker's Crisps get captured. But he says, run in the tunnel, because this is also a game where people out loud tell you what the plans are, and the Koreans can't hear them.
Well, they can't speak American, it's fine.
That is very true, yeah. So yeah, you run into the tunnel, you get seized by the McCoyles, and Dana is horrible to you. And then she decides not to torture you, and then you go speak
doesn't she open up with, I'm gonna cut your balls off or something?
Yeah, basically, she's like, I'm gonna fucking torture you. And it's fucking chill out. I've only just met you.
So here's the thing. The problem with this game is, it is cyclic melodrama. The same scene happens over and over again for 15 hours, and then the game ends, which is, you walk into a room, the three leaders melodrama each other over, there's a doctor character called Sam who's like, you can't keep doing the revolution, you're getting people killed. And racist Fred Flintstone goes, hey, it's okay, we gotta do the revolution. And then Dana goes, I'm gonna cut the balls off. And that's and over again. And I apologize for that word, but that is the level these fucking characters are at. And it just does. And it's nowhere near as funny as that sounds. But that is
there's never a bit where he says yabba dabba doo.
Yeah.
I like
that's the 15 hours of plot, is you walk into a room, and this is why I said the other Half-Life problem comes in, is you walk in and Jack's like, so Walker is meant to be the leader. And the game, it took me 14 hours to clear it. The first 9 hours are a plot to save Walker.
Yeah.
The plot to save Walker doesn't work, and the remaining fucking 3 hours make no sense. And then the game is over.
We'll get to the Walker stuff because it is quite funny from what I saw.
But,
but folks at home, I didn't beat Homefront.
I did.
Yeah, Snake took it like a fucking. You have beaten every single game for this mini-series.
I'm amazing like that.
I know. It's almost like you treat this with the respects and...
Well, it's fine. You remember the beginning of the game. I remember the end.
That's true. I also took notes about all the funny EA stuff as well, so it balances out.
No, but I just want to say, the Half-Life illusion. So the first game had the problem of, oh shit, we should have had cuts. This game has the problem of, Ethan Brady is a silent protagonist, and he is the most infuriating silent protagonist there has ever been, because the thing the game wants to have with the free leader revolutionaries, it's basically, you walk into a room, you hear them say awful dialogue and awful plans at each other while they go, oh, that plan won't work, that plan won't work, and Brady says nothing. And my characterization of Brady is that on the inside, he's going, ah!
Why am I here?
We're all gonna die! But he doesn't say that.
Oh, my characterization is like, he's like a 13-year-old boy at a work experience who's just like would rather be anywhere else. Like he's just standing there like a fucking lemon into the game. Oh, Brady, you're there. Go blow up a tank.
That works too, but I like to imagine that he's just screaming on the inside.
Completely shell shocked at like, how have I ended up here? This woman said she was going to kill me, and now racist Fred Flintstone is taking me to get a gun.
And this doctor won't shut the fuck up.
Oh yeah, and this doctor literally has only one fucking drum to bang, which is, the more you do the revolution, the more normal people get hurt. There's a fucking line where he's like, what I see the future as stars in the sky. And the more closer we get to the revolution, the brighter those stars get. But the more people die, those stars go out. And it gets dark. But he ends it by going, you should go to bed. And it's like, yeah, after that fucking talk, I feel like I need to.
That fucking line was a nice warm mug of Horlicks right there.
it was a fucking cloth full of chloroform. Jesus Christ.
That's the most dumb fucking line in history of anything.
It is burnt into my brain because, again, he does the same trick 3 times of, but the more you do the revolution, the more innocent people get hit. It's like...
No, it's like every time he walks into a scene, it's like, cool, we're going to see a repeat of what we had earlier.
It's funny because... I guess if you think like Homefront 1, they were getting ideas from a right-wing guy. And the second one, if you took it at face value, it would make you right-wing in regards to, grassroots revolutionary projects just don't work. People just fucking infight and bicker with each other and try and fucking big dog you like they're on Twitter and go, Sweaty, that's an ableist term. Sweaty. The more people you do the revolution, the more people get hurt, so you shouldn't do that. And it's like...
It's the most bizarre lineup, and it's the worst fucking result for a silent protagonist, because you're led by an idiot, and Dana is at best a liability because she's just a psychopathic killer who every scene has to be told, no, Dana, you can't go outside and just stick a knife in a Nork's throat. That would be bad.
Only Brady can do that because he's the only one who can respawn.
Brady can hide in a dumpster. That's why he's allowed.
He has learned from Oscar the Grouch how to hide from the KPA. Just by the way, just before we forget, their nickname, because every speculative future game has to have a nickname. There for the North Koreans is the Norks.
Yeah, which
in the UK is a term for women's breasts. So every time they say it, it makes me smile.
I forgot that. That would have made the game way more fun if I remembered Norks was a slang term for breast.
It was Norks that made me think, oh, did Graham Nork, like, is there still a little bit of the
cheeky,
tiny bit of the free radical magic there?
We're going to go out there and we're going to get them Norks, and you just chuckle.
Oh, yeah, and they're all, like, in the street chanting, shouting, get the Norks out, get your Norks out.
This game is better now, actually. That's got a point in my head.
Get the Norks out.
Norks out for the boys.
Norks out for the boys. Norks out for the boys. Racist Flag Flintstone basically says the way that you can help out the revolution is by doing missions for us. Missions which are boilerplate, go to point A, go to point B, do like a short, what do they call it? Like
strongholds, strong
points.
points.
Not strong. No, not so much that. You know what in
Hearts and
like
Minds.
fire. What was the horde mode, where basically you just have to stay in a room for a minute and shoot Norks until they go, okay, move on to the next bit. Like, every main mission basically boils down to go to a place, or find a thing, or do a horde mode, or shoot guys. Like, that is, like, the mission variety, like, it's dressed up by go to an interesting location and progress the plot, but there is nothing... There, you have played Homefront: The Revolution in a million other games before, but the other part of it is that you have to win the hearts and minds.
Yes,
and the hearts and minds trade TM system is the Far Cry stuff.
Basically, yeah, it's enforced sandbox crap.
Yes,
you'll do a few story missions, and they'll send you. Basically, I think there's like 5 or 6 districts, so this happens 5 or 6 times, and once per zone, it'll be like, oh, to progress, you gotta fill the hearts and minds, which is basically go turn on radios for a fucking bit. Go do some open world checklist shit that will push it up 1% and do that 100 times. Again, 50 times.
What we said right at the beginning of the episode, which is tonally not a bad idea, because essentially it's like, you know, you go around, you like, you know, fuck the police, you kind of like cause disruption, and then that causes a state change in the world of it goes from a lot of KPA on the streets and a bit more risky to anarchy, essentially, and it opens up, like... Well, basically, it makes stuff safer... it makes it safer for you, essentially.
Yeah, it's kind of cool in that, because... I'll say this for the game's difficulty, and we haven't actually talked about the shooting, which is... The shooting in this game is a lot more immediate than Far Cry. It's a lot more kind of... It's a lot closer to a kind of... Well, it's a Crytek game, so...
Yeah.
Your weapon wobbles a lot more, you die a lot faster, enemies die a lot quicker. The weapons all feel kind of inconvenient, which actually kind of works to its favor because it encourages not going all out if you can avoid it.
Yeah.
It's actually a pretty good system, and there is some real juice to the shooting in this, which does give it something I like.
Okay, I was alright with... I mean, I was playing on controller anyways, but then I did have to start using the woolly system of... I started using my mouse a little bit just to kind of line up...
You're genuinely a madman.
Well, only to line up headshots and stuff. And it was only in certain bits where I could just plug down, get some headshots, and then I went back to pure controller gameplay. Because, again, this is a game that was built for consoles first and foremost, which is why all of the console button prompts are, like, done professionally, whereas all the keyboard prompts were like done in a fucking text editor.
Yeah, and I played keyboard and mouse and it worked okay. The shooting felt a little bit jittery and oversensitive in places, which I was able to get around, but I mean, that could have been why the weapons felt awkward. I'll say, actually, the game does have a very interesting system of, like, so you liberate areas and you get points for research and you get money and you can spend that on weapon attachments and not just weapon attachments, but full body weapon modifications, which is how they kind of get beyond the 2-weapon limit in that every weapon you carry actually... Well, actually, it's a 3-weapon limit at a certain point in the game. They let you carry 2 primaries and your pistol.
They give you a rocket launcher for us. So it's basically, you have to do the story missions to unlock it, but they give you a rocket launcher at some point, and that unlocks the 3rd slot.
Yeah, but then you can put whatever you want in there. I actually barely use the rocket. And there is a little bit of fun, inventive magic with it in that... So, the pistol... the system is the pistol is actually in free form. So instead of like a 3 weapon limit, it's actually a 9 weapon limit because every weapon has 3 permutations, which is the pistol can turn into a pneumatic pistol, which is silent and more damaging but takes charge, or it can turn into an SMG, which is like quite short range but very effective. Yeah. The marksman rifle can turn into a sniper rifle and a freedom launcher, which fires fireworks, which that's where it gets a little bit crazy. But my favorite was the crossbow, which can turn into a fucking blunderbuss. And genuinely one of my favorite video game shotguns. Like, that's... The blunderbuss is wholly inaccurate, but everything that is in a kind of arc in front of you up to maybe 2 meters will die. Like, you could just sprint into a group of 5 enemies, pull the trigger, and they will just melt. And that's... But it's super risky to do, but it's really funny.
My favorite weapon ended up being the incendiary shotgun version of the shotgun.
That was pretty effective.
Because, the moment you... I mean, the only reason you wouldn't use it is if you're in tight quarters, because that fire can...
And against vehicles, where it's like... Flames don't work. You do actually have to vary up your weapons a bit, which I'll give the game's
it isn't...
credit.
Yeah, and like, having the free weapon limit makes sense, because you do want a relatively heavy-duty weapon for tanks and cars and stuff like that. So, when I initially started playing this game, and as I said, my opinion on this has fluctuated massively, but one thing that made me think, this might be a highly rated bullet time game, was the way they introduced the weapon permutations, which is literally picking up where the slot was. So you talk to racist Fred Flintstone, and he goes, okay, here's your jobs, boyo. Get yourself a gun, and you get a pistol from the surliest character in the game.
You never actually need to visit, because every single locker fulfills the exact same function as this
Samuel's lockers, but you have to meet Samuel at least once, where he is just horrible to you, and you go, okay, fair enough. And you get a pistol, and racist Fred Flintstone says, hey, it doesn't look like much, why don't you turn it into a submachine gun? And you go, what does that mean? And what that means is that you go into the Crisis mods menu, you change the gun from a pistol to a submachine gun.
Yeah, he just rips the receiver off the gun.
Removes the receiver, just keeps the trigger and the handle, and puts an entirely new gun on top. And you go, what?
Yeah, it's the oddest thing. And, I mean, I think the blunderbuss is the bizarrest, but it's like...
Well, the crossbow is built... It's like a... like the back end of it, which remains the same.
It's a gas pump.
Yeah, so it's from a chainsaw. It's bizarre. This is utterly bizarre.
And, like, the assault rifle is the oddest one, because, like, the assault rifle is an assault rifle, okay. And then you could change it out for an LMG, which is fine. And then a limpet mine launcher, and it's like, hang on, wait.
Wait a minute.
The handgun is funny. I mentioned the pneumatic pistol, which I never used because... you can just buy a silencer, which completely invalidates the fucking pneumatic pistol idea.
Nice thing is that when you buy an attachment, those attachments apply to every single gun.
The silencer only works on the pistol, which I thought was a decent bit of balance.
Yeah, like they do enough to, as you said, there is a reason to swap between weapons. And again, Halo has the 2 weapon limit, and I understand why it has, because you're constantly cycling through it. And again, this game makes exactly the same sense, but they also get to have their cake and eat it too with, you also have like a Doom style, technically you can have 9 weapons. It's just that only 3 are technically active at a time.
Yeah, and it's like, I would find myself in gunfights late in the game when I was very to grips with it. Most thrilling moments in gunfights were like, okay, I need to change up, and I'd find a little kind of spot behind cover, and I'd change out, say like my marksman rifle for something else, for like a freedom launcher or vice versa. I will say, in terms of thing, because this game is... the weapons are very wobbly and generally underpowered. I just wound up using the marksman rifle with a basic reflex sight for everything, because the game is all very short, medium range, and that thing puts down basically every enemy in 2 to 5 shots.
Yeah.
So I did kind of develop a dominant strategy, a dominant gun, but for a lot of the time I was forcing myself to use the assault rifle because, hey, I'm liberating America. This gun looks like an M4. I should use the American gun.
The most American gun.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense.
I buy into the setting. I try and care.
Buying into the setting as well, you also get there's 4 kind of grenade types that you can get as well,
Oh,
and they're
yeah.
also very hacky, and they also have this weird morphability system as well, where basically you have explosives, Molotovs, hacking devices, and noisemakers. Noisemakers, I don't think I ever used.
I used them once, and it made the situation worse.
Well, there we go.
Yeah, I threw it far away, but more enemies turned up and then just paraded around where I was, and I'm like, I'm never fucking using these again.
I'm never using these again.
It just summoned more eyes.
The hacking tool is weird because
It's very contextual.
Yeah, and it's that and the pliers or the bolt cutters. The game teases the idea that it might have kind of a Metroid-like utility weapon system, but it is literally only the shears that you get in the first minute, and then these electrical hacking devices, which you do have to build from scratch, but that's the only thing they're used for, is just open some doors.
So there is a kind of... So the way the stronghold system kind of works is there are types of strongholds, which are... There are places you have to go in and you have to find a radio switch on, and these tend to be navigational puzzles. Then you have to power up this building, which becomes get a motorbike. Oh, by the way, this game has driving, but it's kind of weird.
I like the motorbikes enough, but I haven't really got enough to say on them, other than I would like more open world games to have vehicles to get around.
The motorbikes are kind of like their utility besides faster travel, but at more risk of getting spotted is sometimes you have to power up a generator, and you power up a generator by driving a motorbike on top of a something to spin up the wheel and get the generator.
Oh, like a treadmill kind of thing.
Yeah. But then, and I think there's one of these per region, is a base where you have to go in and you have to destroy a tower by turning a big crank and making it blow up. And these are hilarious because it's always the exact same layout, always the exact same thing. And this is kind of my problem with Ubisoft design, is that thing has to account for if you haven't got the hacking tools yet or don't bother to use them. So which is, you can send in a hacking device on an RC car, which is one of your options, and drive it to a gate switch and hack it and open the gate. Or you can throw a grenade at one of the air vents and go in that way. And it's really funny that this is always the case. Or there is a giant, big, conspicuous ramp to just fling a motorbike
to motorbike stunts into the base.
And that's one of the stealthy options, because if you jump off the bike immediately, no one will kind of get what's going on.
God.
That is another element of Ubisoft design that annoys me, is because of their approach to leveling, which this game kind of gets around by needing hacks for a lot of stuff and needing certain tools. But they make every area tool agnostic so that you can do it with anything, which leads to very flat, dull design to me.
Yeah, I would prefer it if... I mean, there's something like Jacob said on Twitter a while back, which is that I don't want 100 options to solve something. I want one specific option that a developer came up with and polished to a mirror sheen.
Yeah, it's like that. It's very spongy, like a Ubisoft game, because they're like, oh, we need to allow every approach so people can make whatever they want of our games. But your game is everything and therefore nothing.
No, exactly. You're trying to appeal to everybody, appeals to nobody. And again, it's it's the buffet of game design, where it's we have 100 dishes, but they're all bland as hell. Nothing is stand out as a result,
Yeah. So you have to liberate everywhere once per region, which
you do. Apart from in the first one.
Yeah, that's a freebie.
That's a freebie. You don't have to... Which is funny, because the first time I played this game, I 100% liberated that area and then said, I don't want to do this again another 5 times. And the game was like, no, you have to do that again another 5 times. It's for fuck's sake.
So I got all but 3 of the strongholds. I was adamant, I will 100% the banal system, just so I know, just so my words carry more weight on this podcast, and just so I will have done it. But the last 3, I only played 2 of the last 3. One of them was shoot down 5 snipers in this area, and one of them was hidden in a corner, and no matter what angle I looked at, I could not see him, and I was trying to volley grenades. I went through all of my explosives and could not hit this fucker. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll come back to you. Then I went to a hospital, a big area on my map lit up, and it was like, find 8 medical supplies in this area and bring them to this table. And I got 3, and then I thought, I'm fucking done. I can't be
can't do
fucking
this.
arsed anymore. Fuck it, racist Fred Flintstone. Let's go to the end game. We're done. Philadelphia, you can sort this area of Philadelphia out later. This is not my
Listen,
problem.
I'm a gun for hire. I'm not like a fucking manager. Can we not get? Do we not have subordinates who can do this busy work?
Fucking playing Homefront the Revolution. I'm not watching Scrubs. I want to fucking be done.
And again, it doesn't. What's the appeal? Like, I mean, every game is like whether you want to admit, like whether people want to admit it or not. Every game is built around fulfilling a kind of power fantasy of I want to be Kratos or I want to be Spider-Man. What's the power fantasy of collecting 8 fucking medical supplies to do a thing? Like, cut it out.
Give the game its credit because this is boring as hell. The way the open world works is there is always the element of threat because you're always in a hostile
That is
zone.
true,
So it's
yeah.
always like, oh, some of the KPA might wander through, and if I get spotted, oh no. But there's something this game does do decently well, which is the ever-present element of danger, and you are in hostile territory. But also, I was looking for 8 medical supplies in a boring grey hospital.
Yeah.
So that is no one's fantasy.
No, make that more exciting. Have like a helicopter shooting at it while you're doing it, and it's
Or just don't do such a boring fucking objective.
yeah, all that.
Yeah, just make
Have it be
turn on one
one.
radio.
Have it be like a basket of medical supplies. Just one that you have to get.
Maybe just have a Nork doctor I have to assassinate.
There we go. Yeah, he's been injecting people with I don't know Samsung.
Juice.
Yeah, with juice with monster juice. There we go.
He's been doing plastic surgery to make people look like Kim Il Sung or whatever.
Oh, yeah, make it look like King Jong Un.
For some reason. No.
This is the guy in your revolution. He's just a little pudgy King Jong Un looking guy. And he's like, I'll get my revenge on them for what they did to me.
Yeah, it was not fun. So I threw in the towel genuinely on just finishing this up. Because I was going at it with a very prideful thing of, this was not the right mindset, but at this point, because as I went on, every play session was a case of enjoying the game less and less.
Mm-hmm.
And I just wanted to do this to feel like I had earned my stripes on finishing this game. No idea why I still have that prideful element, but no, that my pride just lost out walking through that fucking hospital. I was done.
You ended up doing the famous Games D phrase of race carring it to the end.
Exactly that. I race card.
Which, this is a good game to race car in because basically every game of the past, like every game since Dying Light has very good clambering and like automatic platforming in first person movement now. And this game also does that. So
I will say though, I was at the end of the game. It's very meandering, the plot of this.
Yeah,
it's a mush.
So the plot that I played, here's like the only things that I remember, and then you can like get me over the finish line, which is, so you're in part 1, you're in zone 1 of Philadelphia, and basically the plot is, okay, go out on this nighttime raid and drop some barrels, and you do so, and then they go, oh, we fucked up, get out of there. And then you go over an old guy's house, and he looks like Red Foreman from that '70s show, and he goes, "Some of my guys are in a house. Can you go they're in an old factory. Can you go help them out? You do so." Then he goes, "I'm being attacked by a tank," and then you go over there and you stop the tank from attacking him, and then they go, "Okay, good job. Move over to the next zone." What happens in the next zone? You do Hearts and Minds, and then Sam Burnett tells you off and says, "Stop doing that. Anyways, can you get me some medical supplies?" Which you have to go to a police station.
I guess they took him over there.
Liberating police stations is like the big, like after you've done a Hearts and Minds, you always have to liberate a police station.
Yeah, like the Hearts and Minds thing kind of culminates with, hey, here's this major seat of power Korean installation. Go take that out to show that the revolution is here to stay.
Boom, boom. And even though they have all the cars and stuff in the depot, they don't use them, which is always Why have them? Why have the cars there if the revolutionaries drive them
you've put
about?
big walls everywhere. You've really just snookered yourself on the big cars.
No, stupid. So you do that zone, and then you go to another zone which is slightly hard. Oh, hack the monorail. They're like, hack the monorail.
Yes,
because...
you have to hack the monorail to get into the very built up yellow zone.
Yeah, and there's a guy that they call a collab. Collab is their term for people who collaborate with the Koreans. But this guy is secretly working for the revolution. But he's like, oh, but they're gonna figure out what I'm up to.
You're struggling with this. This plot is like it's hard to remember because nothing happens.
It is a fucking nothing. But my favorite thing with that is that the guy who you help, this is a game of faces. Like, this is all built in Cryengine, and all these guys have the thickest and most rugged faces these guys have got normal maps that they set way too high because they have got the thickest faces you've ever seen. But that guy is like, oh, there's a guy who's breathing down my neck at the place where I work, and I'm worried he might find out. Beat, you should probably kill him.
Yeah.
So he doesn't tell anybody, and so you go to like this little green area where they're growing stuff, like kind of like a little communal garden. Use your camera. Oh yeah, so everything's done for a camera phone. We forgot to mention that, but whatever.
Yeah, that's your Far Cry binoculars / camera lens. That's
slash menu before the menu.
Yeah,
it's how you unlock the map, which you don't need because you already have a mini map. It's how you unlock the diary entries, which you don't need because you will probably read them when you pick them up. It's how you track your missions, which you don't need because there's a big fucking yellow reticule that tells you where to go. It is a game that has so many additional systems in them that it does not need. But hey ho.
I'm just pulling up like a little summary just to help myself because I'm looking at footage as you're going through this. The game is currently 80% off on Steam, which it won't be by the time this goes up.
Oh yeah, well,
just an amusing note. We're recording this on an auspicious occasion.
You help the guy with a thick face, and he gets you and fucking Barney and Fred. Then go to the rock smashing yard down in the. Okay, so the bit where you fight the tank from earlier, the tank's got a brain, basically. Well, they call it a brain, a Goliath brain. But basically, It's the control system that they use to remotely control the tanks. The tanks, by the way, look like something that they were trying to like sell at Toys R Us about 10 years ago. It has 6 big wheels on it.
It looks like something the Combine would make if they were idiots.
Yeah, it seems like it would have probably...
are idiots.
Yeah, it probably would have been in Crisis, this tank, which is why I think that Crytek probably... Because they were like, oh, we have so many tanks made, let's put them in the game. So that's what they did. But... you steal the tank brain, and then you meet a hacker, and she hacks the tank brain, which means that...
You kind of nick the tank brain just as a little bit of serendipity. You're on some other mission supplier, and it's like, oh shit, you disabled a tank, can you nab its brain on the way out? And then everyone gets really hype about, oh, we'll use this brain to save Walker. We'll use the tank.
Well, yeah, we're going to have our own tank, and the tank becomes part of the missions for a bit, but that's where I dropped off. The girl who hacks the tank says... Well, I don't want to hack the brain first in case I fuck it up. Can you go and collect free brains from the drones? Which I thought would be easy enough, but those drones are so fucking spread out that I died like 4 times just trying to get them.
Oh, can I talk about the penalty for death in this game, which is so fucking funny?
Yeah, go ahead.
It feels like they invented a system so that death would have any punishment. You can get valuables in this game because, it's the Far Cry method of you loot everything and you find, like, valuables like wedding rings and American history books and CPUs and whatever.
Sure.
And you can trade those in at a vendor for minuscule cash.
Yeah.
And your punishment for death is they take them away, which was always like, oh no, that $50 I would have got for the 10 valuables is gone. It's the most nothing like punishment for death. But
whereas when you do story missions, they give you like $2,000 every time, and it's like, why would I fucking bother getting valuables?
You didn't get to the end of the game. I just want to point out something hilarious, James, is that when you get to the end game, basically every objective is its own mission, so every 5 minutes is like, have $4,000. You blow up a tank, here's $4,000, and it's just, I have nothing left to buy.
My favorite one was when you do the mission where you go and grab a tank and hack it, and then it becomes your friend. when you get onto the tank, it pays $2,000 to you, and it's like, how? How did that happen?
There was $2,000 in bills in this tank.
It just spat it out like an ATM, like, here you go.
Oh, they were firing this at us.
Thank you for rescuing me. Oh yeah, it does a thing of, don't let the tank get hit. No, don't worry about it. It doesn't get hit. Just shoot it's only you can get hit.
Also, the tank is programmed by story to fucking fall apart immediately.
Mm-hmm.
You spend hours in story getting this tank, and then, like, it fucks up in 2 missions and doesn't even achieve anything.
Well, it's even better than that. You get the tank and she's playing around with it, and she goes, why don't you shoot something? And you do. And then immediately the power goes off, and they go, fuck. Well, we're going to need a minute to fix the tank. Why don't you go to the stink zone?
Yeah, you go to the... There is a zone in the game, one of the fucking 5 or 6 areas, tries to vary itself up by, this area is filled with gas, you have to wear a gas mask. What this means is there is a tiny little nodule of your gas mask in the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, you have the Metro Prime visor for a minute.
Yeah, that's all that's mechanically different. It doesn't change the gameplay, the area just looks different, and you're apparently wearing a gas mask.
You don't have to change filters, and you have safe zones. No, it's just...
Yeah, I think there might have been something more there that they couldn't quite
do. The funniest thing is that playing this game reminded me a ton of... Did you ever play Wolfenstein New Colossus?
No.
So, that game also has a bit where you go to, the quote-unquote perfect German town, where it's people walking around and you have, beautiful boulevards and stuff, exactly like the level where the Clab lives. You also go to New York City, which was because in the world of New Colossus, of that Wolfenstein, America is the one that gets nuked. So you go to New York and it's full of radiation, like the stink zone in fucking. And there was a ton of stuff in this game which was this is kind of knockoff. This is oldie brand Wolfenstein. This is weird. Just. Tonally, they're very similar to each other. How they, even the movement kit feels very similar as well. So I wonder whether maybe they added a crossover in talent. Well, I mean, Crytek are, I guess no, they're not German, are they? Machine Games, they're based in Sweden because they're all ex Starbreeze guys. So might not have had any crossover, but it was very weird. I was getting a lot of Colossus flashbacks played.
Yeah, it was giving you flashbacks.
And rather than New Colossus, which has villains which are Nazis, where I go, well, I understand their history's villains. The South Korean ones, I'm still I don't know how they went from making camcorders and stuff to wanting to take over America. That seems a bit of a stretch.
Oh, God. I just want to, I feel like we've been jumping around and I'm struggling to remember the plot, but let me just sum it up this way. Okay. Walker gets kidnapped, and basically everything you're doing, stealing the tank and getting ready and that, it is all in an effort to find and rescue Walker. And that is a solid 2/3 of the playtime at the least. My total playtime, according to my recordings, was 13 hours and 30 minutes.
Wow.
The first 9 hour and 45 minutes were on the save Walker plot.
Jesus. I will say, by the way, I played this game twice, and I needed to restart it because... And I explained this to Snake, but basically, I was I need to play this in one go, because the moment I fall off, I'm never going to play this again. Which is what happened, because I played it very early on.
It's like riding a fucking unicycle. If you lose all your speed, you will fall off.
I was like the bus from Speed. The moment I lost any momentum, the bus exploded, unfortunately. So I said, right, well, I'm not picking up from where I was. I'm just going to... Oh, no, actually... Oh, no. I could... Oh, no, funny story with that, but we'll get into that maybe towards the end. But I had to basically restart my game. And... I was not doing any Hearts and Minds missions unless I needed to. My original playtime beforehand was 7 hours. I'm now up to 9 hours, and I have achieved more in 2 hours than I did in fucking 7 hours.
Basically, if you do the busy work... If you don't do the busy work, this game is maybe 3-4 hours.
Easy.
If you do the busy work, this game becomes 14 hours.
Yep.
And it was funny, because I'm a I'm fond of Noah Caldwell Gervais. I really like him.
We haven't mentioned. Okay, so we did mention that at the beginning of. There's only one defender that we know of this game, apart from the people who reached out and said, "Oh, I really like this." But perhaps the most famous defender of this game is YouTube's very own Noah Caldwell Gervais.
And I'm a big fan of him. I joked with you, maybe you should reach out, and you went, actually, you gave it a go, and he didn't respond.
No.
And considering the opinion I have, I'm very glad he's not fucking here right now, considering the room. But, it's like, I think he described this as a 30-hour game, and I think that really put in perspective, like, yeah, he isn't that great at games. I'm not actually holding that against him. I'm not, holding that, but it's just the funniest thing is, I clocked this fucking thing in half the goddamn time.
Do you think that was part of the juice of why he liked it so much?
If I had to play this for 30 hours, I'd fucking hate it.
You don't think you'd develop, Stockholm Syndrome?
No, I do not. I think I would despise it more. The fact that I was able to clock this fucker out in, that short a time compared.
Jesus.
It's nice to have a metric, though, for, I am that much faster in this one very specific useless instance.
And it's funny because I'm sure I've watched that video, but I cannot remember any of his points for why
he's much more charmed. I think he generally has a lot of the same character problems we does, but he sees them as basically racist Fred Flintstone. He sees as a character who's he knows he's above his station and is just trying to hold things together, but barely is. I don't get that impression.
I don't get that reading either. That's a bit
Yeah, I get the idea that he wants to get Walker back because Walker is the guy who should be in charge, but he seems so flippant and no, I'm the one in charge. I'll get it done. Don't worry. No, the revolution. That's what I mean.
He struck me as kind of like a scab, foreman, just look, we just got to get it done, okay?
Yeah, he's kind of dumb and uncaring, unaware of the consequence. He will get as many people killed as possible before he throws in any towel. The man is towelless.
He says, "Yabba dabba do, I like giving missions to you." So.
Yeah, exactly. Meanwhile, Dana's just thinking about just castrating people.
She just wants to commit misanthropy.
Misanthropy?
Misanthropy. I don't know. She wants to be.
I don't know.
She wants to be Lynetta Bobbitt. Meanwhile, Samuel Bennett, whatever his name is, who looks exactly like Lewis from Left 4 Dead, by the way, to focus it.
Okay, so in my notes, I was about to say, okay, no, I have the second name of Sam, the doctor, who's an annoyance, but I've got my fucking notes. Dana Moore, crazy lady. Jack Parrish, boorish leader idiot, and then just Sam, bitch doctor. That's my note for his character.
I saw the bitch doctor. He told me what to do. Ting tang. Every time you start a revolution, people get hit.
It does really sum up his character, though. He is the doctor who bitches just non-stop.
I mean, he has one drum to hit, and it is every time you try and do something good, actually bad. So he's Spec Ops the Line, the man.
Yeah.
You do good, but actually that bad. You bad.
So you spend the first 9 hours of this 13-hour game, potentially 30, depending on who you be, trying to rescue Walker. And and you do a lot of meandering stuff. It's we got to get to all these other regions, and it's a lot of busy work. And
you sort of building your armory.
Yeah,
I suppose.
You're building your armory, and it's at some point you nick a tank, and then it becomes several hours of, if we have this tank, then we can definitely break Walker out. And then you get the tank and it fucking breaks immediately. It's genuinely, you talked about that moment where you fire the tank in the underground and it turns the lights off. Every moment in this game that's meant to be a kind of drama-inducing setback instead comes over like a fucking Monty Python bit. It's just funny that everyone is so ridiculously incompetent.
I wonder if that's the spirit of Free Radical, though.
Maybe. It's like all the lights go out and it's such perfect comedic timing. It's like,
But whether that's funny in like TimeSplitters 2 and 3 of like, oh, Cortez has created a problem, so now you have a funny thing to shoot out of. This is just like fucking, it's Charlie Brown and the football. It's like, oh, another hour onto the game because it didn't work. And it's like, fuck off.
So I had a note which was just, it's amazing how much wheel spinning goes into nicking a car.
Oh, Jesus.
That was my note about this tank. And then tank doesn't quite work. And then eventually they announce, oh, they're going to trial Walker at the court. And they're like, okay, we're going to raid the court. And
cool.
Also there's a collab in there. There's some guy you talk to in the rich district. And I can't remember. He's just kind of a fusspot who's like, you know, he's comfortable with the Koreans, but also works with the resistance, and he's a little bit guilty seeming.
Oh, is that the thick-faced guy?
Yeah, I think that was thick-faced guy.
I mentioned him a bit earlier. The only thing I liked about him was that, well, I say like about him, there's a bit, okay, so this game also has a lot of weird times where you're in checkpoints and you're in queues, and people just loudly state to you, okay, so I'm a big fucking, traitor. And
I'm a big terrorist.
I'm a big terrorist, and you're going to do a lot of active terrorisms, but keep that on the down low. And then they walk 5 foot forward to go, "Hey, Jack, how you do?" You know, like. But there was a moment with him where he brings Brady into the, you know, into the rich zone, into Casino Night Zone.
Yeah,
and the guy
this was the one character I liked is the guy who got you into Casino Night Zone. He was the one guy who seemed kind of world weary and interesting.
He also seemed like the only guy who had any character to him beyond, "Hey, I'm a fucking guy," you know, like. But there's a bit where he's talking to the guy who's behind it, and he goes, I don't know if I should let you through because, you know, you've been doing a lot of weird stuff. I've been hearing stories. And, you know, and that's the part, you know, that's the classic cliche of, oh, well, you know, I've heard stories as well. So if you tattle on me, I'll tattle on you. But his tattling was, I heard a story that your daughter went to a concentration camp and you just lie to people and say she died. And it's
I forgot.
Yeah, like, that's not really leverage of, haha, your daughter's dead and you lie about it. And it's like, what?
It's like gonna make him look bad in front of the fucking neighbors kind of threat.
Yeah, like, I don't really know what leverage that was.
You wouldn't want that coming out about you, but also you're arguing from a weaker position compared to you are terrorists.
Yeah, but the guy goes, you got me there, I guess. Thanks for reminding me about my dead daughter.
Oh boy, do I miss Susie. Alright, on you go.
Oh, it's such a shame that she died at the concentration camp, and now I lie to, I guess, keep up appearances?
I don't know.
I was going to say maybe it was lost in translation, and I was like, oh wait, no, this was made in Nottingham.
Maybe it was lost in translation.
Yeah, maybe.
Nottingham. What are they thinking over there?
So they go to the court, and they go to break out
you eventually, 9 hours in, you go into court. But it was a trap set for the revolution.
Because Walker, turns out...
He was a turncoat.
He was a turncoat.
He was spilt lies.
He was like, I love my Samsung Galaxy Fold. I can fold it up to 3,000 times. And they were like, he's been brainwashed.
Like, that damn traitor, we fallen into a trap. And then you... And
then you just blast your way out like you do in every other situation, and you're fine.
Yeah, you just fucking shoot your way out. You fucking kill them all. You fucking Nork the Norks. They're done. And you escape. You know what? I joked about wearing an American flag cape, but looking at the loading screens, you are fucking genuinely doing that.
Yeah, I know. It's really funny.
That's why you're caught instantly. It's good for wind resistance.
You get in the back of a car and somebody dies. Was it the hacker who died?
I think the woman gets shot. Yeah.
Yeah, the woman hacker, yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, you escape. And then you go back to
the stink zone.
You go back to the subway where Sam is there Sam Burnett, that's his name, and he's like,
Sam Burnett.
and he's like, it was a trap, and we're like, shut the fuck up, and everyone's mad, and they're like, the revolution is done, the revolution's over, we're all gonna die.
And then they run credits.
I wish.
Yeah.
But it's the funniest thing is the first 9 hours are a Shaggy Dog story, and then racist Fred Flintstone says, what if we kidnap the mayor and make him say some shit on television? And that's the last 3 hours. They just decide, well, fuck it, if Walker wasn't gonna do it, and we're gonna die anyway, let's just make some big play. And it works when I describe it, but in play it's the most unsatisfying, like, oh, 70% of this was a waste of time. The remaining 30 is something we probably could have done before a bunch of us died. It's just that now we're desperate.
So, Wolfenstein the New Colossus also has a bit where you go to a place which is an obvious trap and then have to shoot your way out. And it also ends with the big play being, what if we get a Nazi to say something on television?
Perfect.
What? Did they all just like, shit, we need enough, and like, oh, nobody's played Homefront the Revolution. Can I copy your homework? Yeah, just make sure you change some stuff.
So, God, you get sent to the prison zone. Like, you have to...
Yeah, you get sent to Prison Island from Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah, I wish. No, you have to sneak into the prison zone and, you know, make them revolutionaries too.
Yeah, you gotta, yeah.
Like, that's the last play, is like, we're gonna kidnap Mayor Simpson, that is his name, and, but to do that, we're gonna need some people who are in prison, so you go to the prison
the toughest.
district.
Yeah, you gotta get the toughest guys.
It's at the prison zone, find at your last stretch of the game, you can find an arcade cabinet which has TimeSplitters 2 on it.
I was debating whether to mention that, but
I
yeah,
think we
that's
have
where
to. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we have to in regards to, like, so... The one thing that pretty much everyone has told us about this game, and probably the most famous thing...
It actually led to a genuine uptick of sales when it became a known thing.
Yeah, people were more excited to play a game that they could easily emulate elsewhere.
Well, here's the thing. This isn't emulation. This is a genuine, honest-to-God PC port of TimeSplitters 2. And
probably remastered to 4K.
And remastered to 4K, and in the game itself, it's only 2 levels, but there are codes to get more. And the thing is, people at the studio thought these codes would be uncovered and the game would be kind of brought back.
I believe the idea was that they were going to put the codes in, like, magazines and stuff as, like, you know, like codes of the olden days. Like, hey, here's how to unlock thing.
That's a little bit of mystique. It's a little bit fun. Didn't quite come to pass, so eventually I think someone at the studio just said what the codes were. So
somebody on one of the devs on Twitter mentioned it and being like, oh, well, you know, the 2 levels are in the game, but we actually had it that the entire game's in there, the entire campaign, arcade mode, and multiplayer, but basically because we were up against the wall, we didn't test everything, so we just locked it off, but it should work. But we locked it behind codes because it was meant to be like, well, because it wasn't like properly tested. But unfortunately, I lost the codes. Day later, another one of the devs. Oh yeah, here's the codes.
Sweet.
And
yeah,
that's on the PS4 version. That's on the Xbox One version, and on the PC version, which people have now patched to just automatically load up TimeSplitters 2 instead of Homefront.
People have jump the gate, basically, because you have to play a good chunk of this game to get to it, but no, now there are just mods and launchers just to go right into a fully opened up, patched version of a true PC port of TimeSplitters 2. Not quite everything is there, but a lot of it is there.
And it's not, as the guy said, it wasn't properly tested, and there are some levels that, like, bug out and, like, crash the game and stuff, but other than that, very solid port. And the reason that I had to replay Homefront the Revolution is because I got so bored the first time around that I said, I'm just going to download a save so I can get to the TimeSplitters stuff. And that's what I did. And I played TimeSplitters 2 campaign again in fucking
nice.
Homefront the Revolution with mouse and keyboard controls and went, good game. Good times.
I did not replay it. Not
No,
because
you have a
I'm
very
sick of
funny line about this.
Yeah, because I was streaming it to you when I was just like, I gotta finish this game. If I stream it when I'm in a call talking to people, it will go down a bit smoother. And I got there and I was like, I was excited for a minute. I was like, let's play this. And I got a little bit into Siberia. And I actually remember, because this was like a automatic body response, was just playing this isn't getting me closer to finishing this game. Like, I was so done with Homefront the Revolution that this oasis of TimeSplitters 2 meant nothing if it was like the desert of fucking Homefront the Revolution was sprawling beyond.
It was like a Valkyrie offering a hand to take you to Valhalla, but you looked behind you and saw that the Crusades was still happening and said, no, I gotta finish this.
Yeah, so I did not play much TimeSplitters 2 just because it was in this game. And that's the fucking thing, is like, I know people like it, and if you like it, you know, no shade on you, but also like, I can't bring myself to like this, I guess, at the end of the day. I respect bits of it, but also, fuck, man.
That's kind of where I'm at with... Well, I guess, what's the last thing that... Well, tell me what the last thing that happens in the game is, and we can just wrap up.
So you go into the prison zone and you liberate it. You hearts and minds it. You get some guy called Small, and he's basically a slightly less crazy male version of Dana.
Okay.
Like, he wants to blow, but instead of
wait, what was the thing that happened where the guy was like, don't come into my fucking room, and you went in and he shot you, and he went, oh, cool.
Oh, yeah, like, when you first approached Small, there was this really funny moment where he'll pull a gun and say, hey, don't get close to me, and me, thinking it was just a cutscene bluff, walked over and was killed. You have to walk into the room and genuinely stay back, which I respect.
Nice touch.
That.
Yeah.
I respect that. The game actually fucking followed through on its cutscene threat.
I mean, I always like it in a game that you can tell it has a particular level of polish where when you're in scenes where people talk at you, when you walk around them, their head and eyes track you.
Yeah,
I always
in this
think that's
case.
a nice...
But here's the funny thing, his gun didn't follow me, but he just shot and I died.
Cool.
You remember that? He was still aiming, like, at the front door of the room. I was standing, like, 90 degrees to his fucking
He just
right.
went into a dead zone and just died.
I don't know, he must have ricocheted the bullet like fucking wanted.
Ooh, that's why he was in prison, because he's the ricochet bullet guy.
Yeah, he's too dangerous.
He's too powerful. So you break him out.
You break him out and you get there, and racist Fred Flintstone is like, alright.
Yabba Dabba Doo, Revolution 2.
Yeah. So you get, basically he's like, alright, we got a big plan. We're gonna raid the fucking town square or wherever the fuck the mayor is held, and we're gonna force him to do a live broadcast where he tells the people to rise up and rebel. It tragically does not quite go as planned. Like, you do a big daring rooftop raid. It's actually a somewhat decent set piece.
Yeah,
like,
watching you play it looked okay.
Wait, did you watch this cutscene? Did you watch the scene where it happened?
Wait. No, where did you... Oh,
I did not get
wait.
there when I was playing
Wait.
too.
When I installed the save game, I think I played a bit of the final mission, so I remember this.
Okay, but basically what happens is, turns out Mayor Simpson and Dana have history. In the
What?
You know, it's implied that he may have did some untoward things towards Dana in particular.
Okay.
Yeah. So, obviously, Dana is brought along on the mission.
Of course, yeah.
And you break into his office, and you're told to work the camcorder. There's a big fucking recording booth set up in his office, so he can do a fucking thing at whatever times. He can do a big
check the levels, check the levels.
Yeah. It's like, oh, have I got good exposure? Can we have makeup? And, you know... racist fucking Fred Flintstone just kind of gets him at gunpoint and says, you're gonna read this out, you're gonna tell him to rebel, and Mayor Simpson's like, go! No, he says fucking... he says, I can't read this, they gas cities that rebel. Like, that's the reveal. That's the big, late-minute reveal, is that, oh yeah, if a rebellion ever succeeds, they just fucking destroy the city, they just kill everyone immediately, I will not read this out.
Which I guess we should have figured out, because when we go to the gas zone, they said, yeah, they had an uprising and they gassed it.
Yeah, turns out they've destroyed 2 major fucking cities already. But anyway, Mayor Simpson is desperately trying to explain to the 2 chuckle fucks beside him that, look, you're getting us all killed, but they're like, no. And then Dana says, fuck you, and then stabs him in the head. And then, like, and then the funniest scene in the game happens as Jack is just like, ah, shit. And, like, you focus the camera on him as he's having a fucking... as he's, like, having a fucking panic attack. And he's like, oh, okay, look, I'm not good with words, but, look, you gotta take your future into your own hands. You gotta rebel. Look, no, fuck it, you gotta fight for yourself. And he just starts, like, just hyping up the revolution, but in this dumbass way.
That's amazing.
It's the funniest scene, like, it's the second funniest scene. Oh god, I'm reading it. Let me read Jack Parris's speech in my bad accent. Right now, words ain't exactly my strong point, but you know what? This ain't the time for words anymore, or prayers, or hope. This is the time for action. Now, you're scared, and I get that. Now Walker's gone, the Norks have us backed into a corner, and you're looking for someone to tell you what to do. Someone to give you a way out. But I say fuck that. If you want to be saved, you gotta save yourselves.
Cool.
Yeah, you gotta take responsibility. You want your home back? Take it. You want your life back? Get it back. And by the way, there's a big American flag in the background.
Very cool, love it. It just starts flapping as well.
Pick up a gun, pick up a brick, fight with your fists, grit your teeth, get furious, cause this is it. This is the moment. This is our only chance. Stand with us, stand with your sisters and brothers, stand with your neighbors, stand the fuck up. If you want out of this hell, we're gonna have to fight our way out. And this is after, like, they fucked up getting the mayor to say anything, and some crazy woman stabbed him in the fucking head, like, 5 seconds ago. It's fucking funny as hell. And oh yeah, and then, like, Jack keeps the camera rolling and it's like, okay, let's go. Like, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah, she's a ugly bitch, ain't she? Let's go home.
Like, it's the funniest thing because, like, yeah, you've broken into the most, like, fucking
secure building in Philadelphia.
There's a helicopter hovering outside, flashing the lights in. Racist Fred Flintstone's like, shit, we gotta go. And then it just cuts to black, fades back in, and you're outside and it's fine. Like, you just escape off screen.
Well, it's because you slid down the Brontosaurus from Fred Flintstone's front.
Yeah.
After pulling a horn to say he was hometown.
Jack Parrish, the most American.
He's the leader of the revolution.
From the town of Philly, he's about to hit a chestnut tree.
Critically injured, press X to revive.
So anyway, you're like, okay, cool, the revolution, you succeeded. You walk into a room, the doctor runs in. They're gassing the fucking city.
Oh,
shit.
No.
So then a massively long mission begins, where you just go through a bunch of the game's zones, getting fucking surface-to-air missiles ready to fucking shoot the gas machines out of the sky. But, oh no, the other gas machines are confusing our missiles. Go blow up the other gas machines.
Oh, Jesus.
It goes on and on and on. And every few minutes you're getting awarded $4,000 for your efforts.
Oh, very cool.
Get any of those last-minute upgrades. I guess now that we're all about to die, no one's really holding on to their cash anymore.
Sell.
Sell. Eventually, you get to a point where it's like, okay, we blew up all the gas machines, but we have to shut down this last gas machine, so we need to do a raid on City Hall.
Right. Okay.
God. And then, I'm gonna say I did not expect this to be a recurring element with Hayes.
Oh,
why is suicide the most funny thing they can do? So, you launch an assault on City Hall, you blast your way in, and then you come to a shutter, and it's the most obvious setup ever. Like, Jack and Dana are lifting it, and it's like, there's gonna be a fucking gunman on the other side of this, and someone's getting
and it will
shot.
it will be Walker.
No.
Oh.
No. And he's like, hey, Brady, come over here and help me. You lift it up, and Jack Parrish, racist Fred Flintstone, gets riddled with bullets. And you drag him into a corner, and he's like bleeding and he's dying, and Dana's like panicking and is like trying to heal him. He's like, there's no point. You can't help me. You gotta go on. You gotta do it. And Dana then like grabs a box, and it took me too long to register what that box was. And she's like, I can't go on. I can't lose any more people. And she then just sprints towards a nearby tank and blows it up.
What?
Yeah, she's like, I can't lose anyone else, and just does that. And the whole time that she did that, blowing up that tank, which I guess is also what riddled with bullets, I just couldn't help thinking, I could have just done that with an RC car. Like, that's what
I got these bears. Have you seen them?
Yeah, it's like, that was an easy 2 frags right there, Dana. You didn't need that. That's fine. Like, all right, off you go, you fucking nut. Have fun. You were a liability all along anyway. So
she died as she lived, blowing up.
Yeah, pretty much. To turn off the things, and you've got a handgun, and you walk into a room and a KPA soldier ambushes you, but then you're saved by Jack. He's actually perfectly fine, and Dana did that for no problem.
Hey, they look pretty bad back here. Anyway, where's Dana?
Where'd she go?
Oh, she left her shoes behind, and they're smoking.
Oh, wow, Dana. Well, she was always all over the place.
Oh.
And the final shot of the game is an injured an injured Ethan Brady and Jack Parrish looking over Philadelphia now as the missiles fly and take out the gas machines.
Jesus.
And roll credits.
What's the music that they set it to?
I don't remember. I was too busy laughing.
I suppose we forgot to mention that. So, because I think we're probably going to wrap up from here, but I guess.
Well, there are DLCs.
Oh, yeah, there is DLC, which. Did you play the DLC?
No, but I did look at a story synopsis. Hilarious thing. I think it's the only thing worth noting. The silent protagonist is now voiced.
Which is weird. They did exactly the same thing with the original Unreal, that the expansion pack gave him a voice as well. But
I actually will say this about the credits.
Okay.
There is a point about the credits, actually. It begins before any names are seen with a big message from the developer talking about how much trouble they went through getting the game out.
Interesting.
Yeah. It's 2 paragraphs and a final sentence. Just, Homefront: The Revolution has been in development for just over 4 years, and as some of you may be aware, the path has not always been a smooth one. Several reboots, the original publisher going into liquidation, the development studio changing ownership, I could go on. Thankfully, throughout all of these difficult times, key people have kept faith and believe in the IP and the team's ability to deliver a quality game. And I would especially like to acknowledge Clemens, Condriti, and Hugh Bainon's unwavering support, without which this game and this studio would not exist. For the team members that have made it to the end, I salute you for your endeavor. To create a game of this size and complexity with a relatively small team is a remarkable achievement. For those that we lost along the way, I would like to thank you for all of your contributions, and you will find your names in the special thank you section. Finally, all of you that have enjoyed playing the game, I promise you, this is just the beginning. And that's tricky because to go on to the DLC, it took nearly a year for the 3 story episodes to come out.
Yeah.
Yeah. There were 3 DLC episodes, one of which kind of expanded Walker. It was a prequel, which is how we got into Philly and kind of got the revolution off the ground there. And then there are 2 that follow Ethan Brady and are kind of sequels, though I'd argue only one of them seems to matter, from my limited understanding, which is basically someone from NATO comes over and is like, they're looking into the Korean situation in America. And you have to kind of go and stop a nuke from launching. I think you actually do have to do a similar thing where you cause an EMP blast to knock out a Korean satellite so that the word can get out. But it does give the game an entirely new ending. Ethan Brady dies, by the way. He drops into a missile silo, and they're like, oh no, yeah. He drops into the missile silo, and it's going to launch the EMP. And they're like, shit, Brady, we'll get you out. And he's like, no, the missile has to launch. This will save America. Just fucking burn me to a crisp. Get it out of there. And I'm fine with that, considering Brady had zero fucking character up to this point.
He was pretty much just dirt, so yeah, why not?
Yeah, but but that is where the series ended, and I'd say it's funny because it is the original game kind of ends on this, kind of cliffhanger, book is open ending of, oh cool, America is gonna rebel, this is the first step. But then the DLC kind of ends on NATO going, alright, fuck you, Korea, NATO is declaring war on you.
But it's weird that they decided to do that, like, so we came over and we noticed that just there was a bunch of guys on a Navy dock just punching wood, and we think maybe things might be bad.
That's a funny thing. So before you get the tank, or around the time you get the tank, there is a section where you are sent to the docks.
Yeah, you and Fred go to the stone quarry for the day.
Yeah. And yeah, you kind of described it as the Koreans had people working, and apparently working was just punching the ground.
Yeah, it was just pickaxing plywood on the ground.
I think the Koreans just have to give these people busy work. They just run
I
out
think
of things
it was
to
just
do
keeping
with
up
the place.
appearances in case NATO ever came round.
Oh no, the Americans are happy. We have them pickaxing the ground.
It's good. They're pulling out computer parts and then giving them to us, not trading them for dollars that they then spend on teddy bears that blow up.
So yeah, that is the story and game of Homefront: The Revolution. I didn't like it very much, I don't think.
I was going to say that. So my first question was, after all of that, like, yeah, not a fan, I guess. I don't even know how to recommend it, because it's one of those things where it's like, well, you've probably played a game like this before, and there's nothing that it has within its bones that's exceptional enough that I can go, well, a lot of it is like this, but there's this one thing that it does which is really it's like the transforming gun stuff and like the setting and the motorbikes and whatever, like those are cool, but they don't really like do enough to make it unique. And the rest of it is just either, checklisty, go to a place and hit a button, or it's do missions, which, as I said, you've done them a million times before in other games with guns in them.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's like, I want to say it has a sharper focus and more of a clear identity than a Far Cry. The combat is a bit more visceral and a bit more punchy, and it's like,
yeah,
that's the tragedy of this game. I don't like it, but none of it is really bad.
No,
it's
everything
fine. But
is...
that's the thing, it's just fine.
Yeah, that's the problem with this game, is that it's fine. There's nothing, like, because we've covered other games on Bullet Time which are nowhere near to the level of polish of this, but
they're more interesting.
Yeah, like 50 Cent Blood on the Sand is like the perfect example of like the quality isn't there, but it makes up for it in having a lot of charm and a lot of like confidence in its identity.
This is, I don't know, it's really cruel to say, because we did get people like, oh, this game was under thing, but I find it very just charmless.
No, I would say this as well, which is that if you went in, because I went into this game with zero, like, well, not even zero, rock bottom expectations. Like, it's a sequel to Homefront, a game which Homefront wasn't like, it wasn't notorious. It's not like a Sonic 06 or whatever, but like, it was a nothing. It was just a nothing burger which had this kind of weird racist element to the plot. And then you hear that, oh, they made a sequel to it, which is like Far Cry. And like in your head, you know what that looks like, where it's wet newspaper, the game. But then you play it, and it's like a little bit better than that. So by all intents and purposes, it massively exceeds expectations. But I don't know, like there's better...
You were very much whelmed.
Yeah, it is. And for what it does, there are better versions of it out there in other places. There's I don't know. I
Here's
wouldn't
the
know how
thing,
to.
this is a question I'm not sure how to broach, and I thought about it early on, but like, say you do like this, the conceit of saving America from a foreign invader. You know, you're just into that idea. You like you know you've got the patriotic fervor of, oh yeah, America would overcome da 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 da, da, and you got that going. But and I guess you wouldn't be thinking about it too deeply. But does that fantasy still hold if it is a massively contrived alt universe where it's not really the America you know overthrowing a Korea that isn't actually anything like real Korea?
No, and the funny thing is that, and I kept mentioning this, is that this game just kept reminding me of Wolfenstein, the new ones, where it's like, oh, this is what Homefront wanted to be, but they fucking nailed it in regards to the tone, the gameplay, the situation, the power. Like, again, going back to it, it is power fantasy. And, like, Wolfenstein, the New Order, and the New Colossus, say
You're playing
a
giant fuck-off American who tears through Nazi bastards.
Yeah, you are literally, like, the one thing that stands in the way of fascism is a guy who can dual-wield fucking LMGs. He is, like, again, that is ultimate power fantasy. And again, it even leans into, you never get the idea in this, like, why are the Koreans villainous other than their occupiers? Whereas
they're collecting their money, which
exactly.
You know,
they want, where's my money? They're just like rent seekers. Like, where's they're the fucking they're the bailiffs. Like, they're at everyone's door. Like, where's my money?
Give me the money. Give me the money. Where's the debts?
Which again, like, that kind of already paints it as a weird thing of like not even called sympathetic villain or whatever. No, this is just a villain of, like, they're just a pure villain of circumstance.
No, it's like America were bastards in this setting.
Yeah.
And so was Korea. So you are fighting to liberate a country that the story... I know it's realistic and it's like, it makes sense. Like, you would still want to liberate your country because at least then you would have freedom. But it's just this funny thing to think about is like, oh, actually everyone was bastards.
As Yahtzee kind of pointed it out, a lot of it, when you think about it, does start to fall apart, which, I mean, in fairness, like, 80%
a lot of stories, if you get really into the granulars, it's like, you know, you look between the threads and it's like, you're not meant to. You're meant, you know, it's not shut your brain off, it's just know how to engage with a fucking text.
No, exactly. And I think the problem is that, like, Wolfenstein gets this power fantasy way better because... who are the enemies? It's history's greatest villains. History's greatest shorthand for, we understand why these guys are villains. The Nazis. Okay.
And then you make them even more villainous.
Yeah, you make them just cartoonishly more villainous. Pulpily more villainous. Versus here, where it's just kind of like...
where it's Korea, but not really, because they embody none of the idea of what, like, North Korea represents, because now they're a corporatocracy.
No, or even what South Korea, like, represents, which South Korea is, like, it's America, well, it's like what America did to Japan. They're just, like, a little America. They're just, like, a little... corporatocracy. So it's like, why, what? Like, why would they get involved? What is the point?
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of the weird things about these kind of world-building exercises. At a certain point, you diverge so much that it may as well be aliens.
No, and
to go back to the crisis point.
Which goes back to the crisis point of the fact that they're all rolling around in six-wheeled tanks and have, like, super drones and stuff that you go, yeah, I guess they kind of are, but then... you have incredibly weirdly visceral kill animation, takedown animations where, oh, those are guys underneath those masks. Oh, this is kind of gross as shit. Like,
oh god, the knife takedowns in this game, we didn't really get into that, but yeah, there are stealth kills, and there's one which, it stuck with me because, you know, I'm not particularly squeamish. I am in
the
real
one where
life,
they stick it just in the woman's brain.
Well, no, I was talking about one of the canned ones that you can do to multiple people. But there's, like, some where you just stab the guy and that's it. But there's one where, like, it fucking lingers. Like, you pull the knife out, you put it over his throat, do the slit, and it's like...
yeah!
And it, like, it's a very basic throat slit, but it's the slowness and deliberateness of it.
Well,
that's, I had... bizarre.
Well, I had one where it was, like, one of those auto-gen missions where it's like, save the hostage or whatever it is. And it was a woman guard, and the animation was the quickest thing of just... you just stick a knife in her skull, like, through her brain, and it's like, like there was something like uncanny about it, where it was like, oh, this is, I'm not a fucking
Yeah, it's
hell.
it's a bit much at times.
Yeah, which again, game made out of other games, it's like, well, you know, games have to have takedowns in them, but it's like, you didn't take the extra step of, why should this game have takedown animations, or like, what?
Or like how to make, or kind of how to give it that distance of like not making it feel a little bit gratuitous.
I feel like this game is how people, other than me, because I'm crazy, think about the Mad Max game, where it is just game the game, where it's made out of pieces of other games, and they don't go the extra step of contextualizing why do this. But the Mad Max game is good because they only have mechanics and stuff in it which feels Mad Maxy. Like, they go the effort of like anything that's there is only to build up the fantasy of being Mad Max, essentially. While here it's like, it has takedown animations because of course this game has takedown animations. It has liberations because of course a game like this has liberation. And while Homefront the Revolution as a concept, yeah, it does kind of fit the Ubisoft formula for that stuff, there is just a lot in there that it's like, again, like, if you're already piecemeal, if you're already a game made out of other games, I'll just go play the other games. It's because they'll probably be older and cheaper at this point as well, you know?
And if they're more singularly focused, you'll just have a better version of these myriad features which are kind of half-cooked here.
Yeah.
Just... That's the thing, it's like, it's loose threads in a jumper, and that's kind of what some of the elements feel like. It's just a loose thread, like the fucking valuables system where you get a tiny bit extra money, the takedowns, the... Hearts and Minds is genuine, is a padding at the least. It's, here's how we get a bit more juice out of this area, we force you to engage with a few of the side mechanics, and it does have the Revolution dress up to make it work a little bit, but...
Sure.
Yeah, it's like a jumper with a few frayed knots in it.
And it's funny because I was on a podcast, I was on Zach Fraser's podcast talking about Batman Arkham Asylum. And the thing that I had to reckon with was that, is Arkham Asylum like a game that an AI would make? As in, it would analyze what are popular trends and then combine them all together into a soup. And whereas, like, Arkham Asylum feels like that on reflection because of how many games have stolen elements from it, and how much Arkham Asylum you could kind of boil down to a blended game of, it's Prince of Persia meets Metroid Prime. Like, you know, it has those elements. But because it's all built around Batman, the magic sustains. You never for a minute think that it's not unique. Whereas this does kind of feel like an AI could spit out a game like... Or at least
it's
whatever...
creativity by collage.
Yeah, whatever it was... But this was a game that was designed to be the most popular game of 2016, because it is the most 2016 game. Like, the modern equivalent of this would be, I don't know, fucking the Suicide Squad game that they're showing off, where if that had a Battle Royale mode, that would just be Game the Game 2023.
Yeah, I get you. It's just, there is no creativity or originality in it beyond the framing. It's just every mechanic you've ever heard before, but with a fresh coat of paint on top of it.
And like very small flourishes, like the weird transforming guns, which I know is from Crysis, but the fact that they are...
Yeah, it didn't quite take it to that level. That is an evolution of changing a gun into a different gun.
In Crysis,
it was just whacking on sights or a laser or a silencer or whatever. It wasn't...
Sure.
Well, it wasn't make your gun a different gun.
No, and that's how they get away with having both a 2-weapon limit and all the guns you would possibly want. And motorbikes and stuff. Again, it's the little... It's like celebrating a meal for how the knife and fork looks. You know, it's like... It's not... Which I guess gets maybe the final question that I'll ask you, and maybe the biggest question of this episode, which is, does this feel like a Free Radical design game?
God, no.
No, absolutely not.
There is none of that spirit here beyond, like, us joking when they said Norks, did they mean tits? Which, no, they did not.
Or the fact that Norgate is pretty much, like, going fucking ham on the soundtrack.
Oh, God. That is a thing. The music felt like it was struggling to be doing something more interesting in this game.
It was like he was like, I have no ideas. I'm just gonna play 2 Chemical Brothers records at the same time and see if that gets people jazzed up. But
he did all the TimeSplitters games, man. Like, the guy has range, he has creativity. Now he has to make, like, droning, you are walking through a war zone background music. And it is genuinely overbearing, actually. I brought that up to you as, like, the music reminded me of Jak 2, which is an odd example, but it's like, in that game, you're walking through a kind of dystopic future city. In this game, you're walking through a dystopic future city. And even though you're just kind of walking and nothing's happening, I wish the game was quiet, but instead it's going like, dun, 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 dun. Like, you're constantly under threat, and it has to fucking lay it on so thick. But I think that is kind of the only free radical element, is the music being, you know, very, very empathetic to the environment.
Yeah, and having that kind of, like, even like when Norgate experimented with, you know, like even like stuff like Scotland the Brave, it still had a very kind of electronic and, you know, it kind of felt like his old chiptune roots, which this kind of does a tiny bit, but also feels like he had the budget to.
Well, the music is very, through the TimeSplitters games, it's very expressive and very genre defined. It is like absolutely selling a time and place as full on as it can, as full on as the levels can, because, you know, TimeSplitters, it's a snapshot of a singular genre idea. Yeah. But you put him in this kind of environment, and it's like, it's too much.
No,
like, he's too constrained.
And I wonder as well, like, because I don't want to do the thing now of like, oh, if I was designing this game, what would I do different? Because that, like, we would be here for hours, like, breaking that down. But a big thing would be the fact that the game is about, like, a revolution. It's set in Philadelphia. Where are the fucking, like, you know, the tomba drums and like the flute and, you know, the stuff that you would hear from not a Ren Fair, but like a Civil War reenactment or whatever, and mix that with the electronic, like that would have given it a tiny
You wanted
bit of
to kind of go into Philly's history and culture and like bring that into the fore.
I mean, it's funny, like Kevin, who's been on previous episodes of this, Philadelphia native, was like, what are some games set in Philadelphia? And we're like, well, we've been playing Homefront the Revolution. And he was like, well, how Philly is it? And I was like, it's not. Like, the Liberty Bell doesn't turn up at any point. There's no, like,
I mean, I'm trying to think, there's one other game in Philly I can name, and it's fucking Heavy Rain, so.
Yeah, and Heavy Rain, it also has the thing of, this could be any city USA, but I guess they went for Philly because New York is so iconic and large, but they still wanted a northeast city. And Massachusetts is full of people like Mark Wahlberg, so you go for Philadelphia instead, I guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know enough about Philly to comment on whether or not his character was in any way captured. But
I couldn't say for certain. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, I think if you were a Philadelphia native, this might have been the first time you learned that the game was set in Philly, because there's nothing Philly to it. Not saying that, like, you know, the revolutionary killers should have been, like, black and yellow, and, you know, they should have been, you heal yourself by eating a big Philadelphia cheesesteak, like an old beat-em-up game.
Oh, no, I think that would have made the game more charming, at the very least.
Like, even the accents, I couldn't particularly say if they were particularly Philly or not. Like, they were just generic American accents, like, kind of all over the place. So, I don't know, it was. And again, like, that goes back to the fact that the world has no identity, and there's absolutely no free. This is like pure gun for hire work.
Yeah, in a way, the game itself is mercenary.
Yeah, exactly. In a way that Haze was fucking weird, but like kind of on reflection, you sort of see the strand between that and, like, say, Second Sight, where, you know, it's them getting a bit more into the military and, like, violence in video games, and it's their take on, well, yeah, it's Generation Kill for Idiots, essentially, where it's, like, it's about the Iraq War, it's about, you know, games like Halo and stuff like that, but through their lens. But this is just, you could have, I didn't, like, you could tell me anybody else made this game, and you could tell me AI made this game, and I would believe you.
Yep. Yep, AI would come up with Jack Parrish.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
It does feel like an AI struggling to remember characters at the end when fucking Dana kills herself over Jack supposedly dying, and then Jack just walks on screen minutes later is like, oh, I'm a bit wounded here. But he's fine. He survives into the DLC.
Like,
Dana died for no reason.
I'm trying to think of images in this game is like when you use like Mid-Journey to generate environments, and it's full of like weird floors and stuff like that. But it looks enough like a city that it convinces you, I guess.
Did anyone check the characters' hands to see if they have more fingers?
yeah. Check the gun reload animations again. How many fingers have you got? Oh, they should do that in a like if they ever do a film about AI, they should have like a character be like, how many fingers am I holding up? And if it's more than 4, then
I need fingers of whiskey after this game.
Hey yo.
Hey. It's fine. That's the end of this 3 hours of podcasting. It's fine.
It's fine. It's an okay game.
I think I'd sooner replay No,
I would replay this over Haze.
No, yeah, absolutely. Because I was thinking, well, Haze is shorter, but no, I'm pretty sure I could knock fucking Homefront out much faster.
Haze is a much like this is the thing. This is a nothing burger, but Haze is like genuinely awful and has a way more miserable development story behind it, and the ramifications of Haze are just so miserable. Haze is just a cursed object.
I still have it on my desk, by the way. I picked up the copy. I'm holding my physical copy of Haze right now because I've yet to remove it from my desk.
Do you feel like evil energy like pulsing off it?
I'm staring at the eye in the cover right now, and I feel it.
And it's like you and the eye are like cutting between each other like an Evil Dead film.
You know, like when you stare into the abyss stares back. Well, the abyss is Haze.
Versus Homefront: The Revolution, which is like the Netflix action film of video games where, oh, I got Homefront: The Revolution free on my PC, I guess I'll play it. Like, there's nobody's favorite video game. Well, I don't know about, I mean, that's not true. Somebody might like...
Yeah, you never know. You can never tell.
And people do like it, but again, I asked people at home, is it just a fact of, it's just competent. It's just a solidly made game. And in an era where perhaps AAA games have become a lot dodgier and a lot more stodgy with like battle passes and stuff, something like this being a throwback is kind of more appealing. I don't know.
I forgot to say this earlier, but because I was trying to remind myself of the plot, I pulled up the Wikipedia page. The first 9 hours of the plot take up 3 paragraphs. The final few hours of the plot take up another 3 paragraphs. That's how backloaded this fucking thing is. That's how nothing the plot to save Walker is.
Hey, we did a thing. I fucked up. Go do another thing. Oh, that fucked up. Go do another thing.
Yep. Fuck it. We fucked up all these other things. Let's have a Hail Mary. It kind of worked.
Oh, I guess, why didn't we do that in the first place?
Oh, thank God Dana's dead.
Phew, now the plot can get on. Wait, that's the end of the game. Whoops.
Rest in peace, Dana. Well,
rest in peace, Dana. You died as you lived, in an embarrassing let's do the charts then.
Yeah, that was, I don't know whether I should apologize to people. I guess I'll not. You know where I stand. I know.
I thought you were going to say you know where I live. Like, if you have issues with this game, send a letter to Snakerer at P.O. Box.
Come fight me outside my house.
Here are a list of local pubs where I drink.
Just walk in with a baseball bat and I'll know you're here for me.
Give me a warning beforehand if knives will be involved. So we usually do the GFK for this, but unfortunately they didn't have us covered for 2016, so we've gone back to VG charts for this one. So this is for May 21st, 2016, which is when it would have charted. Because it's VG charts and it usually has like multiple games like appear in the charts multiple times, I've decided to simplify it a little bit and just have it so wherever their highest places in the charts, that's the only one you have to guess. So that's made things a tiny bit more interesting. Which,
alrighty.
To go along with that, out of 10 places, where did Homefront: The Revolution chart this week, Snake?
8. was a shot in the dark.
I'll give it to you. The Xbox One version of Homefront: The Revolution charted in the usual version of the charts at number 7 this week. The PS4 version at number 4.
Oh, I had multiple chances to get it right.
Well, not anymore, because I've combined both of those together and said that it actually charted at number 3. So number 3 has been guessed on this now. I know, this is confusing, but don't worry, when we get into it...
You said you simplified this.
I did simplify it. So in the charts this week at number 3 is Homefront: The Revolution, which I'm shocked, to be honest.
I don't know if it's harder or easier to guess with this system.
Don't worry about it. Okay, so at number 1 this week, second week in the charts, PS4 exclusive.
Uncharted 4?
Yes, Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. So
hey!
Number 1, a big seller, a couple of million sold. Number 2 in the charts is another FPS game. Maybe the biggest FPS release of the year of 2016.
Overwatch?
Not Overwatch, no.
Was it that year's Call of Duty?
I'll give you that of Call of Duty Black Ops 3 is at number 5 in its 29th week.
Okay. Biggest FPS of that year? Was it Halo out that year? Halo 5?
Halo wasn't out that year. 2016. Think of 2016 in your head.
I don't remember 2016. I don't remember 2 weeks ago.
Oh my god. Well,
don't worry. I'll get it there. I'll get there.
Okay, well, it's an FPS game. It's a reboot of maybe the most famous FPS franchise out there.
Oh, was that Doom?
It is Doom, brackets 2016. In its second week.
That was the year, yeah. That was the year. I don't remember things, people. This is the tragedy.
No, but Doom was a pretty big deal. People thought it was going to be shit because they only showed off the multiplayer in previews, and then it came out on single player and was a pleasant surprise.
And they didn't give journalists advance access, which had a lot of people going, it's going to be shit.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They only showed off the multiplayer and they didn't give them advance access, so people were like, oh, this is going to suck. Which, funnily enough, they did the same thing with Dishonored, Dishonored 2, they did the same thing of they didn't show... well, that doesn't have multiplayer, but they didn't give them advanced access. People were like, oh, is this going to fucking suck? And then it came out, it was like, oh no, this is good. Why don't you give early access to your games, Bethesda? What's wrong with you?
Yeah, bizarre company.
Yeah.
They make bad RPGs that people argue about forever.
That's true. Just like Starfield. Sounds like Garfield. Number 3, we've already said, Homefront: The Revolution new this week. Now, number 4 is going to be a hard one to try and explain. Also new this week. I think it's a PS4 exclusive. I want to say it is a remake of a PS Vita game.
Is it Tearaway?
It is not Tearaway, no. This is a Sega published game, and it is absolutely a weeb game as well, I would say.
Criminal Girls.
It is not Criminal Girls. No one's remastering Criminal Girls.
No one. And that's probably not Sega either, but I've got a very limited remembrance of Vita games. The fuck came out on the Vita?
This one was a weird one because it combined Anime Girls with, I think, World War One.
Anime Girls with World War One, PS Vita exclusive.
But that then got remastered for the PS4.
James, I wish I've heard about this game.
Well, hold on. Let me Google it and see if I can give you any more clues.
Yeah, because this is out of your wheelhouse as well.
A little bit.
I can't believe something like this. Like, it's not Valkyria Chronicles. That was Anime Girls in World War II.
It was.
No, it wasn't. No, it fucking wasn't. Shut the
fuck
up. No,
Valkyria Chronicles is what you were trying to... Yeah, that's number 4 this week.
But that was World War II. That was Russia invading Finland.
Oh, I'm sorry that I got my World Wars confused. I thought it was
If you said World War II, I'd have got that in an instant.
Oh, Jesus.
That game's really funny. The Japanese represent themselves as the Jews in it. It's really funny.
What?
Nah, they don't, but it's really funny.
Oh, Jesus.
They kind of do. I'll explain it off camera where I can't say anything contentious.
Okay, good idea. Number 5, you already guessed. That's called Black Ops 3 in its 29th week. Number 6 in its 8th week is a sports game.
Virtua Tennis 4.
No Virtua Tennis.
It's a real shot in the dark. It doesn't even exist.
I'll give you. I'm going to say it's not Madden. It's not FIFA. It's one of the other ones.
NBA. This is every time there's a sports game. You say it's not these, and I just guess every other one.
It's not NBA, but it is another sport that involves a ball.
Rugby 2017.
Not Rugby 2017.
Cricket, the showdown.
I'll give you the colon. It is something the show.
MLB the show.
MLB 16 the show at number 6 this week. Now, here's one that took me by surprise. At number 7 in its 39th week.
Whoa.
Is an Xbox One remaster of an Xbox 360 game. Another shooter, but a third-person shooter.
39 weeks, third-person shooter remake.
Well, remaster more than a remake.
Remaster. Fuck me. I'm turning around to look at my fucking games.
A game that you think sucks.
I think a lot of games suck.
But this one in particular, which I think is a contentious point, because I think it's pretty good.
I can't remember what I think sucks.
That's a pretty big Guess Who board you got there, James.
Yeah, you didn't narrow it down.
Okay. Epic made it.
It's not Borderlands, it's not third person.
That's very true.
Epic. I don't think Brothers in Arms sucks, and that didn't get remastered.
No, but
also,
it does
I'm not
suck.
sure if they made. I might be mixing them up. No, I'm mixing up Gearbox.
Yeah.
Why do I always do that? I mix up Epic and Gearbox. I don't know why. I can't remember what. What did they make? What did Epic make?
A game that Noah Cowell-Gervais also, ironically, for some reason, thinks is very good.
It doesn't help.
He thinks a lot of games are good, James. A shooter that would inspire pretty much every other shooter that did what it did afterwards.
I don't know. Arse Defenders 2017.
No, unfortunately, it's not.
It's not that one. What did they make? It's not Unreal Championship. No.
It is not Unreal Championship.
No, that's not even Epic. What the fuck am I doing? I can't
Snake, you
think.
should know. This is a game that Cliffy B made after his wife divorced him. He had to get this off his chest.
What was it? Why don't I?
You know
Gears
what
of
this...
War. Gears of War.
Gears of War.
Why can't I fucking can't remember Gears of War. That game does suck.
Gears of War remastered
boring.
is 39th week. Big seller for the Xbox One. Gears of War.
That shouldn't have been remastered. That should have been unmastered.
Yeah, they should have done like what they did to all those games that were made by Silicon Knights, where they had to like take them out of store shelves and destroy them because they weren't paying for the Unreal Engine.
Like, I beat the trilogy in co-op with a mate. I have no idea why, because I think I just didn't enjoy a single moment. I just don't like those games.
Hey, speaking of games where you don't enjoy a single moment in its 6th week, is the third game in a in a Namco Bandai franchise.
Dark Souls 3.
Dark Souls 3.
Yeah, I'm not a big... Yeah, I don't viscerally hate Dark Souls like I do Gears of... Actually, I don't even viscerally hate Gears of War. What the fuck am I selling of myself here? I just don't like it very much. I like Dark Souls more for what little that's worth, but I'm still not a fan.
If I had a choice, I'd rather replay Gears of War over Dark Souls. That's for sure.
I'm the opposite, but then I consider a playthrough complete when I get to Anor Londo. Then I just turn the game off.
Oh, well, there we go. I mean, everything is better before you get to Anor Londo. Anyway, do not be good. If Gears of War was a if Gears of War was a third person shooter, if Dark Souls was a third person shooter,
there's probably a mod for that.
That'd be good. Anyways, number 9 in its 33rd week is a game collection that is doing well based on a recent release, which is also in the charts for the PS4.
Say that again.
It is a collection of games for the PS4, which is doing well in the charts because of another game that is also in the charts.
That wasn't the Crash Bandicoot remake, was it?
It wasn't the Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah, Insane Trilogy was a bit later, wasn't it?
But Naughty Dog related.
Naughty Dog related? Was it Uncharted? Oh, Uncharted. It was the Uncharted collection.
Uncharted collection. Riding on the coat.
So soon after.
riding on the coattails of the Uncharted 4 A Thief's End game. And then finally, at number 10, in its 14th week, is a Nintendo 3DS game. Moving things. See, that's how modern it's so good doing a game from 2016 because all these games are like more up to date. But yeah, this is a Nintendo 3DS game.
Is it Fire Emblem Awakening?
You're very close. It is the one after that.
I can't remember what the one after that was.
That's fine. I will give you Fire. No, I'll just give it to you.
Fire Emblem The Wanky Wars.
The Fire Emblem The Wily Wars for the Sega Mega Drive. No.
Fire Emblem Pet Your Waifu edition.
That you got it. Nailed it.
Wow, bang. Sorted.
Fire Emblem Fates. The sequel to Fire Emblem Awakening. Fire Emblem Fates, I think you are like... You play as you don't play as a baby, but when you were a baby, you were stolen from your real family, and that was when they decided to do the Pokemon Red and Blue thing of, do you buy the game where you play with your blood family, or do you play with your adoptive family?
That was the game that inspired controversy, wasn't it? Because they took out the mini game where you touch people.
What?
There's a way of putting it. There was a controversy over one of the Fire Emblem games where you could you just touch them.
I've never heard of that.
I could be wrong. I could be very wrong. But
I know there was a controversy. I think the controversy was that you could pet people.
No, I thought the controversy was that they removed that feature from Western releases, and they were like,
"Oh, no. You are, yeah, no, you are right." Like, all the fucking Gamergate guys made a big deal of they are ruining our games by taking out these. But the mechanic was like you could pat women on the head for doing It was basically the mode that they have in the new Pokemon games where you can hug and pet your Pokemon, but it's for your fucking soldiers and Fire Emblem.
To be fair, that is a good feature to keep.
They should put that in XCOM 3.
But they should make it gender neutral. You can pet the men as well.
Oh no, that was the point. You could. I think that was what it was. I think the idea was you could pet the men, but obviously,
so what's the problem then?
Well, the problem is because it's fucking perv mode, and all people want
to do. Who cares?
Do...
Perverts exist.
Perverts have money.
Perverts do have money. That's why furry artists are fucking millionaires. It's bizarre.
Yeah, that's how Mark Zuckerberg raised the seed funding for Facebook, was by drawing furry inflation heart.
Everyone who can draw surely must grapple with the pain that at any moment you could sell out and become a furry artist and you would be living on fucking Easy Street. But
I mean, that's going to be me next week.
Yeah. You'd be thinking about it.
Thumbnails. Furry inflation art thumbnails.
If you go that route, you'll be moving into a big 3-bedroom house in no time flat.
I'll be swimming in a fucking bath of money like Scrooge McDuck.
That's the fucking what every artist has to come to terms with is you draw furry art or you starve.
That's it. That's what the game Don't Starve's about.
Draw furry art or starve.
Yeah, that was the original name for it, but they tightened it up.
Yeah,
Sean Parker from Napster actually said, one more thing, drop the draw furry art or it's cleaner. Well, that's it. We did it. We've wrapped it up. We've finished the Free Radical Design mini-series, folks.
Did it.
Obviously, we will do power rankings in the next episode, but I guess... I don't know. How did you find the journey, Snake?
Enlightening. It made me feel older and very, very often depressed me.
This series did definitely radicalize me into a gamer, unfortunately.
Yeah, you play TimeSplitters 2 and there's no coming back from that. It's shit, this is the better path we didn't go down.
That's what I just want more TimeSplitters 2, folks. That's the only game I want now. And
then... every story you told me about how Free Radical got treated by publishers in the wider world just made me more and more upset.
They're like the Nicholas Tesla of developers.
I can't even hold Haze or fucking Homefront the Revolution against them despite my distaste. It's like blaming a cornered animal for lashing out.
Yeah. It's stop hitting yourself and then blaming the kid for hitting themselves. It's shit. It's so bad.
So, yeah, I'm glad. I'm very thankful that this podcast gave me an excuse to replay some great games, but also, screw you, James, you've made me sad at points.
Well, don't shoot the messenger, I guess, is all I'll say.
Yeah. I will put the gun away.
For now.
It can come out at any moment.
Until we have to do our Gearbox miniseries.
Fuck off.
What would we call that?
I don't know.
Tales from the Boredomlands?
Randy's magic fucking thumbstick.
Randy's USB stick. That's the miniseries name. Randy's magic circle. Looking at the games of Gearbox.
Randy will fix it for you.
Oh no. That's only a joke that our British listeners over the age of 20 will understand.
I feel like only over the age of 40, and we're just old men in younger bodies.
Over the age of 30.
We just grew up listening to weird British comedy, and it fucked us up.
Well, I'm not a we. You, I think, in that situation. I'm okay.
Wow, alright, fine. You couldn't go down with me on that fucking sentence.
Absolutely not. That being said, though, thank you so much for being honest. This has been a fun mini-series. And yeah, I guess we will get into it a bit more on the power rankings. But this was definitely not definitely not a, like I said right at the beginning.
It's bittersweet. It's bittersweet, a story.
And like I said, I mean, there is the potential that hopefully, they're due for, the rise, fall, and rise again. Maybe Embracer might do something with the IP. My main hope is, well, I say my main hope, but if they remastered 2, I think that would be a good foot in the door. And even if nothing ever comes of that, that's fine. Just having an opportunity to play TimeSplitters 2 on new hardware is good enough. And in a weird way, that is, if you want to do that right now, legally, you could buy Homefront the Revolution and do so.
Yeah, but man, online play with custom lobbies, that's what I want. You need online play and custom lobbies and you're sorted. You got a game that will last 1,000,000 years.
Exactly. Have a you don't even need a workshop or whatever for showing off maps. Just have it so you can download people's maps, and then have an old-fashioned forum, or have the Face Punch forum, have it be hey, check out my map.
I'm just fucking excited by the thought of something that's never going to happen, which is just TimeSplitters 2 PC port comes out with fucking custom lobbies and people can do their own game modes and maps. And we'd just be playing that shit. We'd just everyone would have it. We'd all be playing that.
Exactly.
That would take up fucking, that would be so good. It'd just be nice to fucking have.
It's such a weird thing of being at playing a game that is so from 2016 and where games are now, where TimeSplitters 2 as a concept, which is online, is more refreshing than the next Far Cry game starring Bryan Cranston,
which is gonna happen.
Which I think they got him in the mocap studio. They got him in the ping pong balls, folks.
He's there right now, angrily delivering lines for a trailer.
French people saying more Heisenberg to him because they want him to sound more like Heisenberg.
And he's just saying, "I am the one who knocks on the door of this big tower."
Yeah. Say my name. Far Cry 7.
That's what's happening right now.
Folks, it's happening right now.
Somewhere in France, Bryan Cranston is in a recording booth wearing ping pong balls, and in the back room, something dodgy is happening.
Oh no.
The lawyers are ignoring it.
They're squeezing Bryan Cranston's butt non-stop.
Squeezing his balls.
the balls on his the ping pong balls on his suits. And his testicles. Snake, is there anything you want to promote or, I don't know, say before I guess we wrap up for good?
For good?
On this mini-series?
Play Jet Lancer. I've been playing that again lately. It's pretty
cool,
fun.
Okay.
Yeah, good game. Good-ass game. If you played, Luftrauser, I believe that was called. It's that, but it has dodging, so that's pretty sick.
Oh, Luftrauser was the Vlambeer game, right? And it's 2D?
Yeah, the one with the plane.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that, but you've got a fucking dodge.
Very cool.
It's pretty sweet.
I do like Love Trousers, so I'll give that a go on your recommendation.
Yeah, Jet Lancer. Good soundtrack too.
Nice.
So that's what I've been into lately.
Cool. As per usual, I've been James. You can follow me on Twitter at HotCyder, HOTCYDER. You can help support the podcast over on Patreon at the same address as well. And I guess until next time, folks. What's it? I don't know. Like, should keep
splitting.
Oh no! Don't split.
Split.
Oh, split. Oh, sorry. I thought you meant like when you cut the person's throat up earlier in the game. Oh, I thought it was an illusion.
Oh, that was no. Jesus Christ, man!
Oh,
it's
shit.
Corrupted you.
Oh no! I know this game is radical.
All right, let's try a different one. Keep fronting. Wait.
Keep fronting, folks.
Oh no, that's bad too.
You should suffer in pain. The Bullet Time podcast is made possible by Eric Hamilton Schneider, Valerie B, VG, and the Hot Cider support tier. If you'd like to help with the production of episodes and gain access to extra content, consider supporting over at patreon.com/Hot Cider. That's HOTCYDER. A special thanks to Max Coburn for the Bullet Time theme tune.